Chapter 752. Law Enforcement Auction Hall. The name of the Law Enforcement Auction Hall was easy to understand. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. At present, there were already a few people in embroidered robes standing at the highest point of the 5-story building, looking into the distance. Wuxia town is in trouble. The person in front had 3 strands of long beard. He had a square face and a pair of deep eyes. He asked, "Which shop do you think started the fire this time?" "It might not be these 3. The other person was a bit bloated. He had an oval face and seemed to be smiling all the time. He said, "If we were to talk about the start of the fire, although the speed was fast, there was still a pattern to it. It started from the east, went in a big circle, and then ended in the northeast. According to the report, the fire this time was just a surprise attack. The cultivation of the person who started the fire might not be very high. At most, he should be a level 5 martial emperor. Even a martial king could do it. This should be the conclusion of the round-faced man. What about after that?" the long-bearded man asked with a smile. He was obviously very satisfied with his subordinate's deduction. "After that, it's different. However, it's obvious that this was done by one person. So far, there are 10 shops that have reported to us." Just as he said this, someone shouted from inside, "2 more shops have been robbed. They belong to the Chu clan and the Bao clan. It's 21 shops and it's still getting worse." The round-faced man immediately changed his tone and said, "This person's cultivation is really terrifying. Even compared to you, boss. I'm afraid." He didn't finish his sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. The few people in silver behind him all changed their expressions. His elder brother was a martial monarch and was the person in charge of the entire flat mountain ridge. This culprit's cultivation was actually higher than his elder brother's? The long-bearded man was silent for a moment before he said, "You're right. This person's speed, ruthlessness, and cultivation are things that I'm no match for. However, we don't have to worry. This is the Shao clan's territory. Although that person isn't afraid of the Shao clan in the entire continent, I have never heard of anyone who dares to touch us enforcers." The round-faced man smiled proudly. 7*, not necessarily. The long-bearded man said solemnly, "Have all the items up for auction been properly packed? All the precious treasures seem to have been sent into the secret chamber?" "They've all entered the secret chamber." The round-faced man chuckled and said, "Boss has always been meticulous and thoughtful, but this little brother thinks that, this time I'm afraid that boss is overthinking things. I hope I'm just overthinking?" The bearded man's face was filled with worry. A report came from inside. This time the voice was filled with shock. News came from the Shao clan's 3 big shops. All of them have been robbed. Everyone's face changed. This person even dared to rob the Shao clan. "Be on guard." The long-bearded man ordered, "Everyone gather immediately." Before he finished speaking, a long howl could be heard. The long-bearded man was shocked and shouted loudly, "Immediately!" In the blink of an eye, under the fire and thick smoke in the starry sky, a figure had already appeared. The first time this figure appeared, it was only the size of a sparrow. But the second time it was as big as a human head. The third time, it was standing calmly in front of the auction hall. It was dressed in black and had a black scarf covering its face. It was looking up at Dong Shuebing. Its eyes were shining like 2 bolts of lightning. It was actually a short and fat man. The other experts from the law enforcement hall, including the 4 from before, were all standing behind the long-bearded man. Everyone's face was solemn as they looked at the short and fat man. They could feel a terrifying aura coming from him. It was a sharp, murderous aura. "Haha, everyone is lined up so neatly." The short and fat man laughed. His voice was bleak and desolate, making everyone who heard it feel uncomfortable. He said, "Come down. This old man is not used to raising his head to talk to people. If you don't want this building to collapse, come down." Arrogant. One of the law enforcement hall's experts changed. 7*7*, "Go down." The long-bearded man shouted and said loudly, "You have come from afar. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." As he said that, he leaped up and landed lightly. He knew that the other party was not boasting. With the other party's cultivation, it was not difficult for him to flatten this building in an instant. Seeing that their boss had gone down, the others could only follow suit. Looking from the ground, the short and fat man looked even shorter. He laughed coldly and said, "A wise man submits to circumstances. The law enforcement hall is indeed all wise." These words were like a resounding slap to the face. He was clearly saying that the law enforcement hall was cowardly. Instantly, several people could not hold back and wanted to jump out to teach this arrogant man a lesson. But they were stopped by the long-bearded man. "May I know who you are?" The long-bearded man stepped forward and asked with a smile. He was elegant and did not get angry at all. "Don't you see that I have a long face?" The short and fat man was not moved by force or persuasion. He shouted, "You're asking for my name? If I can say my name, why would I have a long face? Is your brain made of tofu? Then I won't ask." The long-bearded man smiled calmly and said, "May I know why you're here? Please tell me. As long as I can do it, I really hope to be friends with you. I don't have anything else. I'm just lacking something, so I'm here to see if you have it." Seeing that the other party was so polite, the short and fat man also became elegant. "May I know what you're lacking?" The long-bearded man said gently, "I'm Qin Baoshan. I'm the person in charge of the law enforcement hall in the flat mountain ridge. I believe that I can help you. Please tell me." "That's good. I've been to a few clans and this is the only sensible one I've seen." The short and fat man laughed. "Actually, it's nothing much. I've taken in 2 disciples. Their cultivation progress is too slow, and I've run out of purple crystals. I'm here to look for some purple crystals. I don't need a lot, just 800 or 1,000 will do. In addition, I'm lacking some heavenly treasures. I'm not asking for much. Whether it's poison or nourishment, 100 of each type should be enough." The long-bearded man, Qin Baoshan's face darkened. "Your requirements are really not high. 800 or 1,000 purple crystals, heavenly treasures for poison or nourishment, 100 of each type. The entire auction hall doesn't even have so many purple crystals. You're simply asking for our lives. Brother, your requirements are a little too much." Qin Baoshan took a deep breath and said, "I can't take out so many purple crystals now. But if you're in urgent need of them, can I have a discussion with you?" "What discussion?" The short and fat man blinked. "I can make the decision to give you 30 purple crystals. This is the maximum amount that I can use." Qin Baoshan said sincerely, "I hope that you can think for us and give us a way out." The 13 people behind him were extremely surprised. When did our boss become so soft? He's actually asking for anything? "Everyone, let's attack together and chop this damn short and fat man into pieces." How would they know that Qin Baoshan had already judged from the other party's body movements and tone that this person was at least a martial monarch? If they really fought, none of them would be able to survive. At that time they would really lose everything. Therefore he spoke nicely, hoping that this fiend would leave and that would be the end of the matter. Qin Baoshan was also not a kind person. He was also a law enforcement officer and had always been tyrannical. But his tyrannical behavior depended on who he was dealing with. That was why he could live for so long. This short and fat man in front of him obviously did not respect him as a law enforcement officer. 30 purple crystals? Do you think I'm always a beggar? The short and fat man was furious. Qin Baoshan, I thought that you're still a sensible person. I didn't expect to be insulted like this. Don't talk nonsense, let's fight. Qin Baoshan shouted, Brother, wait. How many do you want? Why don't we negotiate? Of course, this brother also knows that 1,000 or 800 purple crystals is definitely not something that can be found in such a remote place. If you don't have the intention to go against the law enforcement officers, please be sincere and lay down the path. When doing business, one must always be honest. Honesty. The short and fat man laughed. All right, I won't make things difficult for you. Qin Baoshan, you've compromised today. How about this? I don't want anything from you. You only need to take out 300 purple crystals. I'll turn around and leave today. 300 purple crystals. The wrinkles on Qin Baoshan's face seemed to have deepened. He could take out 300 purple crystals. But they didn't belong to him. They belonged to the organization. If he took them out for no reason, he would be severely punished even if he kept his life. Qin Baoshan, what are you hesitating for? You should know that my conditions are already very generous. The short and fat man's eyes flashed fiercely. Of course, Qin Baoshan knew this. The other party had changed from being overbearing to his current attitude. For a raider, this was already very lenient. And from this point, it also showed that the other party didn't intend to fight to the death with the law enforcement officers. All right. Qin Baoshan's eyes flashed and he said, I'll verify with you. If you win, I'll give you 300 purple crystals. If your excellency loses, your excellency should also know that 300 purple crystals are extremely difficult to obtain. As soon as Qin Baoshan said this, everyone was not stupid. They immediately understood what he meant. If Qin Baoshan was defeated, the organization would have nothing to say if he gave out the purple crystals. Moreover, the 13 brothers' lives would be preserved. If Qin Baoshan was defeated, wouldn't they only be sending themselves to their deaths if they went up? The short and fat man laughed. Qin Baoshan, you're a smart man. Let's fight. With a laugh, Qin Baoshan jumped out. A figure flashed in front of Qin Baoshan. The short and fat figure floated up like a black cloud and circled around Qin Baoshan. After 3 rounds, the figure had turned into a big cloud of black fog. Qin Baoshan unsheathed his sword with a clang. He looked down and held his sword, motionless. If the enemy doesn't move, I won't move. There are indeed experts among the law enforcement officers. The short and fat man praised. Suddenly, with a whoosh, the cloud of black fog quickly gathered to one side. It was like a whale sucking in water. It disappeared instantly. It actually sucked the surroundings into a vacuum. Second update. It's too late. I'll continue to work hard. After I woke up this afternoon, I felt that my neck was a little stiff. I thought it was nothing, but I felt even more uncomfortable after I finished writing a chapter. So, I went for a massage, which delayed my time. But don't worry. I said 4 updates yesterday, so it's 4 updates. This is a fact. Even Elder Huang can't change it. I'll continue to write even if it's late. Chapter 753. The short and fat man shouted and immediately rushed forward. Qin Baoshan's sword was like autumn water. It suddenly transformed into a sword mountain and covered Qin Baoshan's head. Qin Baoshan did not put on any pretense at all. His first move was to kill Qin Baoshan with great momentum. With a few clangs, the short and fat man laughed like thunder. He actually dashed madly in the sword light. When Qin Baoshan's sword slashed down, he would use his hand to block it. When his palm and the sword collided, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. After hundreds of collisions, Qin Baoshan had already retreated a dozen steps. The short and fat man laughed and said, I'm not going to play with you anymore. Go and prepare the purple crystals. His palm struck towards Qin Baoshan. Qin Baoshan tried his best to dodge. His sword was like rain and waterfall. But the opponent's palm floated in like a ghost. Clang. It was a solid palm strike. Boom. Qin Baoshan spat out blood and retreated quickly. The other party rushed up like a shadow. Qin Baoshan only felt the other party's 2 fingers gently caressing his throat. When he was about to die, the other party had already placed a finger on his shoulder. The other party laughed and said, Leave some memories for me. Qin Baoshan staggered out. His body spun and fell heavily to the ground. He rolled a few times on the ground before he got up with his face covered in dirt. He only felt a sharp pain in his chest. One of his shoulders had already lost feeling. You're really good at martial arts. Qin Baoshan clenched his teeth and said while touching his shoulder. You're not convinced? The short and fat man squinted at him. Humph. Qin Baoshan snorted and said, Go and get 300 purple crystals. The round-faced man knew that he could not do this. And Qin Baoshan had already paid the price. If he did not know what was good for him now, there would be corpses everywhere. He nodded and rushed in. Not long after, he came out holding a white crystal box. His face was twisted and he was very reluctant to part with it. The short and fat man laughed and waved his hand. The white crystal box flew into his hand automatically. He laughed, The mountains are high and the rivers are long. I'm sure we'll meet again. He rose up and flashed in the night sky, disappearing without a trace. Looking at the direction, he had gone to the north. A few hundred miles to the north was a forest. After this forest, it would no longer be the territory of the flat mountain ridge. It would become the sinking sand valley. All the law enforcers were dumbfounded. Qin Baoshan groaned. Only then did everyone regain their senses. Big brother, are you all right? Qin Baoshan snorted and said, It's not a big deal. He had shown mercy when he slapped me, and I vomited a mouthful of blood and I am fine. However, his last finger sealed my left shoulder, left arm and left hand. Everyone exclaimed in unison. This person is a martial saint expert. Qin Baoshan raised the sword in his right hand. When everyone saw this, they were all shocked. The blade of the sword was full of gaps. At first glance, it was actually very uniform, giving people the misconception that this was not a sword but a piece of paper. And it was a double-sided saw. This was a rare good sword, and it was wielded by Qin Baoshan, who was a martial monarch. But Qin Baoshan only used his palms to break the sword into hundreds of pieces. The 13 people sucked in cold breaths at the same time. If we had attacked him together, the ones lying on the ground now would be the 14 of us. Qin Baoshan's eyes were cold as he looked around. Everyone trembled. It's all thanks to Big Brother. Big Brother, you've suffered. Report this matter to the branch immediately. Qin Baoshan nodded. And this person obviously doesn't want to fall out with us, so he showed mercy. But no matter whether he showed mercy or not, he had already offended the dignity of the law enforcement officers. Big brother, are you saying that this person is actually? Everyone asked. Yes, this person is very wary of the law enforcement officers. But since he's so wary, he still came to snatch the purple crystals. This means that he really needs the purple crystals. Qin Baoshan said, short and fat, a martial saint and lacking the purple crystals. With these 3 clues, this person's identity is no longer a secret. Report this matter quickly. After Qin Baoshan finished his last sentence, he stroked his shoulder and walked inside. Because at this moment, he suddenly felt that his shoulder was hurting more and more, and it was becoming more and more unbearable. Short and fat disappeared like a shooting star. Then Minister Chu returned to his purple crystals Huichen Hall. 4th Elder Chu had been waiting for a long time. When he saw Chu Yang return, he said angrily, "Where did you go? Why are you so late?" Chu Yang smiled. "4th uncle, don't be impatient. I just saw that it was very lively outside, so I went out for a stroll." Chu Fian almost fell ill from anger. Went out for a stroll? Why did you go out for a stroll at such a time? Suddenly he thought of something. Have you recovered your martial power? Yang Fian's face turned bitter. In these few days he could finally use some of his elemental qi, but he was still far from recovering. Moreover, even if he recovered, he would probably not admit it. Why did you go for a stroll if you haven't recovered? Chu Fian was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He flew into a rage. Do you know that your words have scared away more than half of my 3 spirits and 7 souls? 4th uncle, we have an agreement. Here I have the final say. You're my assistant. I make all the decisions. Chu Yang said slowly, in other words, you're a worker in my clinic. Have you ever seen a worker talk to an old man like this? I'll ask you to be a worker. It would have been better if he didn't mention this. Once he did, Chu Fian flew into a rage out of humiliation. He pounced on Chu Yang and beat him up violently. Of course, I have some scruples when there are others around you. Now that there's only the 2 of us here, you actually dare to threaten me? If I don't take this chance to vent my anger, when will I? Chu Yang had brought this upon himself. He didn't have any cultivation now, and his parents weren't by his side. So, he had to suffer this grievance in silence. Chu Yang screamed in pain. However, Chu Fian still didn't ask what Chu Yang had done this time. After a while, Chu Fian stopped with satisfaction. Seeing that Big Boss Chu's buttocks had become as big as 4 people, he couldn't help but feel comfortable. He thought, damn it, when there's only the 2 of us, I can do whatever I want with this little guy. That was a great idea. Big Boss Chu got up angrily and went to his room to sleep with a black face. In the middle of the night, only 4th Master Chu's owl-like laughter could be heard. The entire flat mountain ridge was in a complete mess. Countless armored cavalry came and went. At this moment, it was the Chu clan's cavalry, the Bao clan's cavalry, and then the Liao clan's cavalry. The 3 big clans were running back and forth, looking for any suspicious clues. Not long after, the Shao clan also arrived. They almost turned the entire flat mountain ridge upside down. The law enforcement hall also issued a new bounty for blood payers. Bounty for a short and fat man. The bounty was hung high under the words blood payers. Big Boss Chu didn't have any business at all, so he went to see what was going on. He saw that the bounty was really well drawn. It seemed that among the 14 people last night, there was actually a painting expert. Minister Chu thought, if there's a chance, I'd like to ask this guy to draw a few erotic paintings. This isn't for fun, but a necessity for my purple crystals Huichen Hall. Erotic paintings are also tools for selling aphrodisiacs. Since early morning, all the medical halls in Wujin town were instantly overcrowded. And those who came were all tyrannical people. He cleared out the crowd of irrelevant people and treated the patients. These injured people were all brought back to their clans last night, but their clans obviously couldn't do anything about their injuries. So, they were brought out to seek medical treatment. None of the big clans dared to invite the doctors back directly. Everyone has injured people, why should you invite them back? What are your intentions? You'll get into big trouble if you do that. Only Big Boss Chu's purple crystals Huichen Hall was still deserted. Not a single patient came. 4th Master Chu was indignant. Fuck, there are so many patients and so many injured people, but none of them came to us. This is really infuriating. Chu Fian couldn't figure out what happened last night. Of course, he suspected his nephew, but Chu Yang's performance was very innocent. He just came here and his martial arts hadn't recovered. Besides, even if he recovered, Chu Yang couldn't have done it. So, Fourth Master Chu was confused and almost fell ill. Big Boss Chu lay on the recliner and squinted his eyes. Fourth uncle, don't be impatient. I knew that they would come sooner or later. Chu Fian couldn't be bothered with him. He still went out to take a look every once in a while, but still no one came. Seeing that it was already noon, Big Boss Chu's place still hadn't opened yet. It was still Big Boss. He couldn't help but scratch his head and anxiously said, "Damn it, there are also injured people in our clan. Why don't they come to take care of their own business?" Chu Yang rolled his eyes and lay on his side, leaving the back of his head to Fourth Master Chu. He cursed in his heart, "You're a jerk? You're collecting money from your own people? Isn't that voluntary labor? And it's to help Chu Filong. I don't have the time to do so." Until afternoon no one came. But things progressed very quickly. How could these doctors from the flat mountain ridge cure Chu Yang's poison? Since they couldn't cure Chu Yang's poison, these martial emperors and kings were in so much pain that they almost gnawed on their own flesh. How could they spare these quacks? His entourage would smash these medical centers until they were completely wiped out. Only a few medical centers with strong backing were spared. The rest were basically bankrupt. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, Big Boss Chu and his assistant Chu Fian moved out a small table. There were a few dishes and a pot of wine. The two of them took a sip and were very satisfied. The sound of horse hooves suddenly sounded. A group of people and horses pulled a carriage. Along the way, screams could be heard from the carriage. It seemed that there was no hope of curing Chu Yang's injuries. Chu Fian's eyes were very sharp. He said, "It's the people from the Bao clan. It seems that they're unlucky. The one leading the horse is Bao Pingyun, the chief steward of the Bao clan. Look at him, it's as if his mother has died. How satisfying." While Fourth Master Chu was gloating, he saw Bao Pingyun turn his head and look over. Then he rode his horse forward, cupped his hands and said with a fake smile, "Oh, isn't this Fourth Master Chu?" Chapter 754. Chu Fian sat still and said, "Bao Pingyun, did someone die in your family? Look at your ugly face. It's as if you're crying for your mother." Bao Pingyun's face changed and he smiled bitterly. "Fourth Master, you must be joking. It's all because of what happened last night. Sai, is your Chu clan safe and sound?" Chu Fian rolled his eyes. "Whether or not my Chu clan is in trouble is none of your business. Bao Pingyun was only a chief steward in the Bao clan. How would he dare to go against the fourth master of the Chu clan?" Laughing bitterly, he rolled his eyes and said, "Fourth Master, is this your family's new restaurant?" Chu Fian smiled. "Do you think I wouldn't come if this clinic belonged to your Bao clan?" Bao Pingyun smiled. "This is great. A new clinic opened by the Chu clan, and with the fourth master of the Chu clan in charge, you must be a divine doctor. Men, bring the patient in." He turned his head and smiled. "Fourth Master, since you're doing business, you can't possibly not let the patient in, right?" Chu Fian smiled. "Since you're doing business, why would you not let those who depend on you outside? But my clinic is different from others. Bao Pingyun, you have to magnify your eyes and take a look. Once you understand, you can come in. Don't say that I'm blackmailing you." "Different from others? How is it different?" Bao Pingyun looked carefully. He looked at the couplets and the advertisements. Suddenly he laughed. "Fourth Master, is this really your Chu clan's clinic?" Chu Fian rolled his eyes. "Come in if you want to see a doctor. If you don't, get out. If you laugh again, I'll make sure you don't laugh for the rest of your life." Bao Pingyun hurriedly stopped laughing and said, "This is the Amethyst Clinic. But how many purple crystals do I need to see a doctor? Fourth Master, your clinic is really unscrupulous." Chu Fian smiled. "You're willing to take the bait. If you don't come in, I won't be able to do anything to you even if I eat you alive. But since you're here, don't blame me for the high price. If you can't afford to see a doctor, get out of my way. Don't hinder my business." At this moment, many people rushed over in their carriages. There were still screams in the carriages. Seeing that Bao Pingyun stopped here and that there was a clinic here, they couldn't help but stop. In any case, he had searched the entire town but was unable to find anything, so he might as well try his luck here. Bao Pingyun gritted his teeth and said, "Bring him in." He turned around and smiled. "Fourth Master, you'll only pay after you're cured, right? If it can't be cured. If I can't cure him, will you give me money?" Chu Fian rolled his eyes. "Fourth Master is right, but what is the standard?" Bao Pingyun asked. "It depends on the patient." Chu Yang was dressed in white. He stood up in an amiable manner and said, "If it's serious, I'll naturally collect more. If it's a terminal illness, I'll naturally double the amount. This is? Bao Pingan blinked and asked. This is the chief physician of the Purple Crystals Huichen Hall. Chu Fei Yen snorted. He's the big boss of this place, old buddy? Bao Pingan was startled. He couldn't help but carefully size up Chu Yang. Then he suddenly realized, you must be the Chu clan's eldest young master, right? Bao Pingan greeted the young master. I didn't expect young master to have learned such great skills after being away for so many years. Chu Yang's words were a little ambiguous. Chu Yang said lightly, I'm a physician, and a physician has the heart of a parent. Let's treat him first. Hearing the words a physician has the heart of a parent, Chu Fian, who had just picked up a cup of wine, spat it out and hurriedly turned his head. You little brat, you really dare to speak. Bao Pingan nodded and smiled. He looked deeply at Chu Yang and waved his hand saying, Young master, please take a look. Can you treat this injury? The person who was carried in was a third-grade martial king. Under the treatment of Yang San, he was in so much pain that he was hovering between life and death. His face was sallow and his body was still twitching. He glared at Chu Yang, gritted his teeth and hissed, Little, if you can't treat this grandpa will kill you alive. This guy only cared about the pain just now and didn't hear anything that was said just now. Not only did he not know that Chu Fian was beside him, but he also didn't know that this was the Chu clan's medical center. Of course, he also didn't know that his words had sent his own life to the gates of hell. Bao Pingan shouted, Shut up. He looked nervously at Chu Fian, afraid that he would get angry. Chu Fian's eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. He just smiled and looked at the man who was in so much pain. There was even a hint of schadenfreude in his eyes. He thought to himself, Your words have angered my nephew. It's worse than offending the real king of hell. Why should I be angry with a dead man? Chu Yang's eyes flashed and he smiled, saying, His injury is so serious. As he said, he bent down and patted here and there, pinching there and picking the painful spots. But his face became more and more solemn. At the last moment, he held the man's waist and twisted it hard. With a cracking sound, the man screamed, spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Bao Pingan was furious. It turns out that it's such a vicious martial art. Divine Dr. Chu looked solemn and compassionate. He suddenly turned his head and said, What are you doing? Why are you pointing at me angrily? Bao Pingan's face was extremely awkward. From his tone, it seemed that this young man had recognized this kind of injury. This was something that he hadn't expected. He hurriedly smiled apologetically, Young master, please enlighten me. What kind of injury is this? You don't know? Chu Yang looked at him in surprise. I don't know. Bao Pingan smiled bitterly. He thought, if I knew, why would I ask you? I'm not asking for it. You don't know? What's your name? Chu Yang stared at him. I thought you knew. Bao Pingan was speechless. As far as I know, this martial art should have been lost. Chu Yang frowned. Why did it appear again? Who could be so vicious as to cultivate such an atrocious kung fu? Young master, this is? Bao Pingan became honest this time. Oh, no wonder you don't know. I also saw it in an ancient book by chance. Tens of thousands of years ago, this martial art was called Flying Finger of Netherworld. It's a vicious martial art. As long as it's used, it'll be worse than death. The joints in the body will automatically collide with each other and can't be controlled. If it's not treated within 3 days, the joints will definitely break and the person will become disabled. Flying Finger of Netherworld? Hearing this terrifying name, Bao Ping, and sucked in a breath of cold air. Full of hope, he asked, Young master, can you cure it? It can be treated. It can be treated, but... Chu Yang dragged his tone. This kind of injury is not easy to treat. Not only does it consume energy, but it also consumes elixirs. Most importantly, do you have enough medical fees? In other words, purple crystals? Bao Pingan was happy and worried at once. He was happy because he finally found someone who could treat it. He was worried because the other party seemed to be ready to take advantage of him. From the looks of it, the butcher's knife has already been raised. Bao Pingan smiled bitterly. But I don't know, is one purple crystal enough for each person? Are you insulting me? Chu Yang was furious. He rolled his eyes and waved his hand. Fourth uncle, send the guests out. Don't. Bao Pingan wanted to cry but had no tears. He hurriedly stopped Chu Yang. Young master, the price is negotiable. 10 purple crystals for each person. Bao Pingan was shocked when Chu Yang opened his mouth. There were more than 20 people in the Bao clan who were injured. So, it would be more than 200 purple crystals? This was a huge fortune. Isn't it too little? Chu Fian said reproachfully, Yang, you're too soft-hearted, soft-hearted, soft-hearted. Bao Pingan was crying in his heart at this moment. He almost wanted to rush up and chop Chu Fian into minced meat. 10 purple crystals for each person, that would be 100,000 white crystals. This guy actually said that he was soft-hearted. What would happen if he hardened his heart? Chu Yang smiled and said earnestly, Fourth uncle, a doctor has the heart of a parent. Chu Fian nodded, this is very reasonable. Bao Pingan's face was full of tears. What kind of parent's heart is this? If someone had such heartless parents, he or she would definitely not be able to live past 1 month. Young Master Chu, can you lower the price? Bao Pingan's face was bitter. There was a hint of pleading in his voice. It's really too expensive. You think it's too expensive? You think it's too expensive? Chu Yang flicked his sleeves. I didn't ask you to treat me. Bao Pingan was stunned. Steward. The 20 or so injured people of the Bao clan shouted at the same time. They were listening at the side. When they were in so much pain that they couldn't bear it anymore, it was really a blessing that fell from the sky for someone to treat their injuries. Now that they saw that the steward had the intention to shirk the price, they couldn't help but plead at the same time. Bao Pingan was in a dilemma. Although he was the steward of the Bao clan, he wasn't the clan master. 10 purple crystals for each of the 20 or so injured people. This was more than 200 purple crystals. How could he dare to make this decision? But if he didn't treat them, he really couldn't bring himself to say it. There were so many people here from all the big clans who were watching. If he didn't treat them, the consequences would be unimaginable. He was afraid that the hearts of the people of the Bao clan would immediately disperse. They had risked their lives for the Bao clan, and now they were seriously injured because of the Bao clan. How could you not treat them? Then who would work for you in the future? So whether Bao Pingan was treated or not, he would be a scapegoat. If he treated them, who would pay for such a large sum of wealth when he returned? Wouldn't he be skinned alive by the clan master? If he didn't treat them? All right, the clan master would say, it's not that I don't want to treat you, but Bao Pingan rejected me at that time. Then he would definitely be a scapegoat. Maybe one day he would be plotted against by these people and die without a burial ground. So are you going to treat them or not? Chu Yang looked at him very reasonably. If you don't want to treat them, then make way. There are still people waiting. Immediately there were shouts outside. Bao Pingan, are you going to fucking treat them or not? Don't fucking ignore us like a dead person. The grandpas are still waiting here. Why are you fucking occupying the latrine pit and not taking a shit? The people who spoke were from the Liao clan. Bao Pingan cried without tears. Your clan master's son-in-law is among the injured people of the Liao clan. Of course you dare to treat them. But what about me? Among the injured people on my side, is there an important person? The clamor at the back became louder and louder. Especially those who were injured and waiting for treatment, they even cursed Bao Pingan's ancestors. Bao Pingan closed his eyes and finally made up his mind, I'll treat them. If you want to treat them, then carry them in. Divine Dr. Chu waved his hands excitedly, go in one by one. One by one, pay purple crystals first. Everyone, 10 purple crystals for one person. There will be no pain at all. If you want to treat them, pay the purple crystals in advance. I won't accept anything else. My fourth uncle is an accountant and a waiter. He pays the money and delivers the goods at the same time. Chapter 755. Divine Dr. Chu's shout was just like a solo performer in Jianghu. He was just short of saying, those who have money help me out, those who don't help me out. The experts from various big clans looked at each other. Damn it, I've long heard that the eldest grandson of the Chu clan was lost. Now he said that he was found. But looking at this situation, could it be that he's a swindler who's making a living outside? They couldn't help but look at Chu Fian suspiciously. Chu Fian's face was full of black lines. But he didn't dare to flare up and stood up. It's so shameful. I'm really shameful today. I'm the fourth master of the Chu clan. I'm also a reputable person in Flat Mountain Ridge. But I didn't expect that I've not only become a shop assistant who sells aphrodisiac, but also become a swindler. Chu Yang shouted once and even took out a big basin to act as a cashier. He winked at Bao Pingan and smiled. Manager Bao, put in the purple crystals. Don't worry, I'll take care of the injured. Bao Pingan looked at this greedy face with grief and indignation. He really wanted to spit into this mouth that was full of saliva. Helplessly, he placed 10 pieces of glittering purple crystals inside. He hurriedly called for a follower and told him to return home to report and retrieve the purple crystals while he was at it. How could he bring more than 200 purple crystals with him when he was out? Wouldn't that be asking for a robbery? Divine Dr. Chu strode into the clinic. He was neither hurried nor slow and had a well-thought-out plan. The person who was just carried in was the big man who scolded Yang just now. So, Minister Chu naturally wanted to give him proper treatment. After entering, he saw that the big man was already lying on the bed. Divine Dr. Chu waved his hand. All of you go out. I'll treat this strong man. The two big men didn't dare to say anything and quietly walked out. Divine Dr. Chu drew the curtain with a swoosh. Then he slapped that guy's shoulder. This was the place where he hit with his finger, and it was also the most painful place. The people outside only heard a sound like, ah, ouch, oh, and then there was no more movement. The burly man suddenly woke up from the severe pain and shouted. Then Divine Dr. Chu slapped him on the waist again and he fainted again. He woke up and fainted again. Then he would wake up and faint again. Divine Dr. Chu's expression was calm. He bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. His face was solemn, which was the standard look of a doctor's parental heart. At first glance, one could tell that he was as kind as an angel. This cycle repeated itself exactly once. The big man was in so much pain that he was sweating profusely. Even the bed was soaked in sweat. His black face had turned into a waxy yellow color, and he could no longer speak. Occasionally he would wake up and look at Divine Dr. Chu with pleading eyes. Divine Dr. Chu finally started. He lifted up one of the man's legs and used all his strength to lift it up. Immediately, another hellish wail and howl was heard. Then she lifted his other leg and turned him over with a smack. The big man's eyes rolled back and this time he fell into a deep coma. How dare you scold me? Divine Dr. Chu muttered to himself, fuck you, if I don't let you roll in the 18 levels of hell, you won't know what the king of hell looks like. Only then did the real treatment begin. He pointed his finger at his throat, which instantly transformed into a finger hammer and tapped his shoulder. His other hand tapped his tailbone at the same time, which instantly transformed into a palm and pushed upwards. A cracking sound came from an unknown place. The unconscious big man's face also revealed a hint of comfort. Obviously he had recovered. Divine Dr. Chu frowned and took out a big piece of Coptis chinensis from the tribulation space. He crushed it into powder with both hands, pinched the big man's nose with 2 fingers, opened his mouth and sprinkled the powder into his mouth. Then he clapped his hands and stretched his hands into the water basin at the side. He lifted the water droplets and dripped them on his face. At first glance, it seemed that his face was full of sweat. Then he walked out weakly and leaned against the door frame as if he could not stand. He said weakly, next, one. He looked like a weak person who had just finished a 5-kilometer cross-country run. The sweat on his face was dripping down. The people outside were a little frightened when they heard the screams inside. But when they saw Divine Dr. Chu's current appearance, they all gasped. It seemed that this injury was really difficult to treat. This young and strong divine doctor was actually so tired. Chu Fian was taken aback and stood up. Yang, are you okay? Chu Yang said weakly, I can still hold on. Fourth uncle. Those purple crystals aren't fake, right? Chu Fian suddenly realized that this guy was pretending. He almost couldn't help but kick him. He said angrily, they're all real. That's good. My hard work was not in vain. Divine Dr. Chu sighed with relief. It's really too tiring to treat such evil skills from ancient times. Chu Fian turned his head and pretended that he didn't hear anything. Bao Pingan said worriedly, Divine Dr. Chu, can you still hold on? At this time, someone had already carried out the man inside. His limbs were swollen like steamed buns and his breathing was weak. But the previous twitching and spasming situation had already disappeared. Obviously, Divine Dr. Chu had already treated him. Bao Pingan went forward and checked with his hands. He was immediately relieved and said emotionally, Divine Dr. Chu is really an expert. He actually healed his injuries in such a short period of time. This sentence was really amazing. The people from the other clans outside were still observing. Seeing that it was indeed effective, they immediately clamored, treat us first. Treat us first. A big man was lying on the stretcher and crying loudly, treat me first, it's so painful. This person was the son-in-law of the Liao clan's clan master. This guy was used to living like a prince. When had he ever suffered such pain? Now that he finally saw hope, he couldn't bear it anymore. Chu Fian frowned and shouted, line up. How can it be so noisy? This is treating a patient, not buying groceries. Everyone was afraid of his prestige and didn't dare to be rash. They were angry but didn't dare to say anything. Bao Pingan had already put in another 10 purple crystals. He said respectfully, "Divine Dr. Chu, thank you." He waved his hand and another person was carried in. Chu Yang walked in shakily. Bao Pingan said attentively, "Divine Doctor, since you're so tired, why don't I send someone to help you?" Chu Yang looked at him from the corner of his eyes and said, "When someone is injured by such vicious martial arts, every treatment must not be wrong. Once there's a mistake, he'll be disabled for life. Do you know how much strength to use with your clumsy hands and feet? How to rotate, how to pierce, how to stretch, how to spiral, how much to pierce, how to react, how to react." Bao Pingan's face was full of cold sweat. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Chu Yang snorted and said, "Do you think it's so easy to earn these 10 purple crystals? I'm also risking my life." Bao Pingan deeply agreed. Seeing that Divine Dr. Chu was so tired and his face was so pale, he couldn't help but say, "Divine Doctor, you've worked hard." He thought in his heart, "It's best that you die of exhaustion after treating my clans." As Chu Fian received the purple crystals, he was laughing in his heart. He coughed and said, "Line up according to the order of receiving the purple crystals. Not even a single purple crystal less. I don't want an extra purple crystal." Everyone despised him. "Look at this uncle. In order to earn purple crystals, he actually doesn't care about the life and death of his nephew. Can't he see that he's so tired that he can't even crawl?" But of course they wouldn't expose him. Anyway, even if he died of exhaustion, he was still a member of the Chu clan. As long as he finished treating our injuries before he died of exhaustion, it would be fine. Some who didn't bring enough purple crystals hurriedly sent people back home to get more. If the Divine Doctor died of exhaustion, there would be no one to treat them. Just at this moment, a ghost-like wail and wolf-like howl came from inside again. This time the sound was even more terrifying. After a while, Divine Dr. Chu walked out while wiping his sweat. When he walked, he actually staggered a little and his footsteps were weak. He only gave Chu Fian a look. Chu Fian understood tacitly. Next. Holding a bunch of purple crystals, he beamed with delight. "My nephew is really too awesome. After treating all these people today, it's enough for the Chu clan's income for half a year. He's really the king of Hell Chu. He's really good at making money." Everyone's eyes were spitting fire. They couldn't wait to snatch the purple crystals. After another ghost-like wail and wolf-like howl, Chu Fian didn't wait for Chu Yang to come out. He directly shouted without raising his head, "Next. Wait, hand over the purple crystals first. You want to take advantage of me?" Bao Pingan was extremely speechless. He could only put down another 10 purple crystals. Seeing that the 30 purple crystals he had with him had already been used up, but the clan still hadn't sent anyone to deliver them, he couldn't help but feel anxious. These 30 purple crystals were the total cost of treating the injuries this time. At this moment, the crowd outside separated into two sides. A group of valiant-looking men in green drove a carriage over. Without exception, screams could be heard from the carriage. They were from the Shao clan. The whole area was the territory of the Shao clan. The person who came was the second steward of the Shao clan in the flat mountain ridge. Although Chu Fian didn't have a close relationship with this person, he knew him quite well. He didn't dare to neglect him. He stood up and politely said, "So it's Brother Shao who came personally. Why, is there someone in your clan injured too?" The leader of the group was a man with a square face and big ears. He looked very amiable, but his eyes were cold. He cupped his hands and smiled. "Fourth Elder Chu, to tell you the truth, someone took away some of our prestige last night. It was extremely embarrassing." The flat mountain ridge was the territory of the Chu clan. This steward of the Shao clan didn't dare to be presumptuous. He changed the topic and said with a smile, "Fourth Elder Chu, I heard that this medical center belongs to your clan? Nephew? Can it treat such injuries? Is that right?" Chu Fian laughed mischievously and pulled him aside. He said, "To tell you the truth, my nephew has just returned. He doesn't have any family assets. So he thought of a way to open a clinic here. He can earn some daily necessities and some crystals for cultivation." He blinked his eyes with a look that said, I know, everyone knows." The man in green obviously understood the situation of the Chu clan very well. He let out a long "oh" and smiled. "I see. There's nothing wrong with this." Chu Yang heard the movements outside and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. "People from the Shao clan?" Chapter 756. Chu Yang smiled sinisterly. I've also injured many people from the Shao clan last night. Humph, it's just that I'm not strong enough now. Should I save some face for the Shao clan? The sword spirit also pondered in the tribulation space and said, with your current strength, you don't even have a firm foothold in the Chu clan. If you rashly clash with the Shao clan, you won't be able to contend with them. If they go overboard, you can give in a little. The sword spirit's words were purely out of good intentions, and it was also the most appropriate way to deal with the current situation. However, this sentence made Chu Yang feel very aggrieved. He nodded deeply and said, all right, on the surface of course I have to save some face for them. The sword spirit's heart skipped a beat. On the surface? Do you still want to do anything in the interior? You've already injured more than 20 people and you still feel aggrieved? I've never seen such a person who can only take advantage of others without suffering any losses. Chu Yang faintly smiled. Sword spirit, you finally understand me. The sword spirit was surprised. What? Chu Yang said, my biggest advantage is my temper. I'd rather take advantage of others than suffer losses. The sword spirit was speechless and directly retreated. Outside, Chu Fian saw that the other party had understood. He laughed and took advantage of the situation, saying, actually, I didn't take much. My nephew only took 10 purple crystals per person for these kinds of injuries that no one knows about. The face of the man in green twitched. He couldn't help but look at the carriage behind him. There are many people inside. If 10 purple crystals per person, 220 purple crystals would fly away just like that? This price is a little too high. The man in green shook his head repeatedly. Brother Shao, you're wrong. Chu Fian's face became serious and he lowered his voice. This is a good opportunity to buy people's hearts. Besides, my nephew just came back. Brother Shao, you're his elder. Just take it as a greeting gift. This Brother Shao obviously didn't prepare a greeting gift. He looked embarrassed. Brother Chu, it's really too expensive. Chu Fian lowered his voice. Since Brother Shao is here, I have to give you face no matter what. How about this, you put down the purple crystals first. After you're done, I'll secretly give you another half. I have to give you face. Chu Fian knew that if the other party wanted a discount, he couldn't refuse. But he had to give face and he couldn't appear weak. They could only operate under the table like this. After all, the Shao clan was one of the dominant clans in the Heaven Layer. The Chu clan could not afford to offend the Shao clan. Furthermore, his nephew had just entered the Chu clan. If he offended the Shao clan for the sake of the Chu clan, he was afraid that he would never be able to hold his head up high in the Chu clan in the future. Therefore, he could only pretend to have the upper hand and suffer a loss in secret. In fact, Fourth Master Chu was calculating in his heart. 5 purple crystals per person was also a huge sum of wealth. After all, he only received 12 purple crystals from the clan in a year. 1 purple crystal per month. Now, even if there were 5 pieces, it would still be 110 purple crystals. It was a huge fortune. Hearing Chu Fian's words, the steward of the Shao clan still had a look of displeasure on his face. Finally, he nodded his head and said, Fourth Elder Chu, I'm really grateful for your generosity. Chu Fian laughed and said, Brother Yulong, you're too polite. So this person was called Shao Yulong. Inside the room, Chu Yang was fiercely tormenting the man. The man on the bed was screaming out of breath. He was hovering between life and death. He was alive and dead. But his ears were pricked up and he was listening to the conversation outside. Then I'm losing out. Big Boss Chu was furious. He could not help but exert more strength. The man under him screamed, Grandpa. He just woke up and fainted again. On the other side, Shao Yulong and Steward Zhao's eyes also flashed with a cold light. They smiled and thought, Motherfucker, I've never seen such a black price in the world. You even gave me a discount. Let's treat him first and then we'll come and rob your little medical center at night. Even if you, Old Fourth Chu, are alone, you won't be our match. But this matter needs to be done seamlessly without leaving any traces. Who should I send? Thinking, he smiled and came to Bao Pingan. He said kindly, Steward Bao. Bao Pingan's face was bitter. Brother Shao, how many people do you have here? Shao Yulong dragged his words. There are 10 more people. Bao Pingan wiped his sweat. Do you have enough purple crystals? Shao Yulong naturally knew. With Bao Pingan's status, how could he bring so many purple crystals with him? I've already sent someone home to get them. They'll be back soon. Bao Pingan smiled bitterly. So you don't have any purple crystals now? Shao Yulong said with a fake smile. If that's the case, are we just going to wait for you? Why don't I add some food? Tell me, isn't this a little bullying? Although he said that he was warm and that he would never bully others, his stance was clearly bullying others. And after bullying people, he still had to make them say, "No, no, I'm definitely not bullying people." Inside, Chuyang was full of admiration. Damn it, this guy is even more shameless than me. Bao Pingan looked around for help. But who would offend the powerful Shao clan for a steward of the Bao clan? One by one they turned their faces away. There were even some who were laughing at his misfortune. Just as Chuyang expected. No, no, Brother Shao has always been benevolent and righteous. Why would he bully people? Bao Pingan said humbly, "If that's the case, I'll be behind Brother Shao." As soon as he said this, the 10 people in the Bao clan who were waiting for treatment started moaning loudly. Oh heavens, this kind of pain is a matter of life and death for even a blink of an eye, but someone actually stuffed it in? They suddenly felt that there was nothing left to live for. Xiao Yulong said guiltily, This is not good, right? Brother Shao, what are you saying? Since Brother Shao has stepped forward, even if you don't say it, our Bao clan is also willing to take a step back, Bao Pingan said righteously, but he was cursing Xiao Yulong's mother in his heart. Damn it, I've never seen such a shameless person. Then, I'll add food. Really add food? Xiao Yulong asked inquisitively. Bao Pingan's face finally twitched. He turned his head away with a black face. This time even Chu Fian could not bear to see it. Damn it, he had already taken a step back, but you're still so unforgiving. Do you have to force him to death? He could not help but cough. Chu Yang's voice came from inside at the right time. Next. Xiao Yulong waved his hand, and the people from the Shao clan immediately rushed over and carried the people inside. Xiao Yulong gave a look to one of the people behind him. That person understood and went into a carriage. Then a clapping sound could be heard from the carriage. Then he walked out with a parcel. Xiao Yulong took the parcel from him and placed it in a basin in front of Chu Fian. He smiled and said, "Fourth Elder Chu, here are 220 purple crystals. Please count them." With a clatter, the purple crystals in the parcel were poured out. There was an uproar all around. Chu Fian was so angry that he almost fainted. There were indeed 220 purple crystals in the parcel, but they were half the size of ordinary purple crystals. It turned out that the cracking sound in the carriage was actually caused by the purple crystals being cut into two halves. This was pure humiliation. Furthermore, it was bullying. Xiao Yulong used this method to express his dissatisfaction with Chu Fian charging him a huge sum of purple crystals. At the same time, it also showed that the Shao clan could do whatever they wanted in this region. Whoever dared to disobey would end up like these broken purple crystals. Even if they were expensive, I can break them if I want to. Bao Pingan, who had just been humiliated, laughed in schadenfreude. There was silence all around. Everyone wanted to see how Chu Fian would deal with this matter. Chu Fian's hands started to tremble and his face turned purple. Just as he was about to explode, he saw the door curtain open. Chu Yang's footsteps were weak and he almost fell down as he walked over. "Fourth, uncle? What's wrong?" Chu Fian was shocked and stood up. "I'm tired. Fourth uncle, please help me recover my body. So many people are waiting. I'm very anxious," Chu Yang said weakly. Chu Fian hurriedly went over and used his martial arts to help his nephew recover his body. Chu Yang took the opportunity to fall into his arms. Chu Fian felt a sharp pain on his thigh. Chu Yang had pinched him hard. He suddenly realized that he could not have any conflict with the Shao clan at this time and place. He slowly calmed down. Chu Yang leaned on Chu Fian's arms. His face was pale and his lips were a little blue. He looked at Xiao Yulong weakly and said, "Steward Xiao, please don't be impatient. Really, my body is too weak, cough cough cough, cough cough cough. I'm not confident. Don't blame me, don't blame me. I'll be fine soon." Xiao Yulong blinked and smiled sinisterly. He said, "Young brother Chu, I'll help you too. Our Shao clan is the orthodox Shen technique in the world." As he said, he reached out and held Chu Yang's other hand. In the space, the sword spirit twitched his mouth. "Your Shao clan is the orthodox Shen technique? Damn it, your hands are too rough to carry shoes for the orthodox Shen technique." Chu Yang was overjoyed. "Thank you, Steward Xiao." Xiao Yulong held Chu Yang's hand and all his doubts disappeared. It's not that this young man has no cultivation, but that it has been destroyed. Transferring cultivation to him is like dropping into a bottomless pit. It can only help him recover his physical strength and nothing else. Suddenly such a thing happened. All the doctors were unable to treat him, but at such a critical moment, a young man suddenly appeared who could treat him and charged such an expensive fee. How could Xiao Yulong not be suspicious? Even if this young man was not the disciple of that short and fat troublemaker, they were definitely related. He wasn't the only one. Everyone present had the same suspicion. After all, no one was stupid. They would investigate this matter immediately after Chu Yang was cured. But Xiao Yulong had already concluded that even if this young man was related, it wouldn't be a big deal. What could a cripple do? He thought deeper. Even if that person wanted to do this, he would do it very secretly. Why would he do it in such a big way? As such, the doubts in his heart slowly disappeared. Now he grabbed Chu Yang's hand and couldn't pull it back. How could he take it back when he said that he wanted to help Chu Yang recover? Wouldn't that be slapping his own face? Xiao Yulong could only frown and transfer his cultivation over reluctantly. Chu Yang was shocked and said happily, "Fourth uncle, let go. Steward Zhao's Xin technique is indeed orthodox. Once it's transferred, it's much more comfortable than yours. If you transfer it at the same time, the two Xin techniques will clash." I feel so uncomfortable. Xiao Yulong's face darkened at once. Wasn't this fucking taking him as a worker? Chapter 757. While enjoying Xiao Yulong's vital energy, Chu Yang moaned comfortably and explained cautiously, "Steward Xiao, this kind of vicious injury is very difficult to treat." "I know." Xiao Yulong's face was black. He continued to transfer his precious energy, gritting his teeth and his cheeks twitching. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes comfortably. "Well, it's really comfortable." Xiao Yulong was furious and almost stopped working. "You fucking treat me as a prostitute in a brothel?" However, Chu Yang was already talking non-stop. "Moreover, before the treatment, I need to meticulously help the seniors move their muscles and bones. After all, they have to return to their original positions in order to get the treatment done in one fell swoop. It may be very painful. Please remind everyone in advance so that they can be mentally prepared. Otherwise, I won't be able to bear it if the seniors move around in pain." "Don't blame me," Xiao Yulong gritted his teeth and said, "We're all Jianghu people. We're used to life and death. Who will be afraid of pain?" Chu Yang chattered, "If it's just blaming, it's fine. But I'm not skilled enough. If they move at the critical moment and make a mistake, they'll be disabled for life." Xiao Yulong nodded with a gloomy face. He turned his face and shouted, "Did you all hear that?" "We heard." Although the wounded were in pain and sweating, they still forced themselves to answer. Chu Yang laughed and said, "Thank you, thank you. Thank you for your understanding. Actually, besides being a little greedy, I don't have any major problems." Xiao Yulong was a little impatient. "Are you almost done?" Chu Yang felt for a while. "It's really effective. You're indeed the orthodox one. Ah. Every time my fourth uncle helps me recover, it takes half an hour. Steward Xiao, you didn't even use half an hour. You're amazing." Chu Fian lowered his head in grief and indignation. He gritted his teeth in his heart. "Damn it, your fourth uncle is too useless. When did I help you recover? Half an hour?" Xiao Yulong's face looked better. He said kindly, "Sorry to trouble you, nephew Chu." Chu Yang chuckled. He was pure and innocent, kind and benevolent. Then he said with compassion, No, a doctor has the heart of a parent." Xiao Yulong's face twitched and his whole body seemed to shiver. He turned his face away. At the side, Bao Pingan, who was also choked by the words "a doctor has the heart of a parent," felt very comfortable as if he had taken a cold bath on a hot day. "You deserve it. Who asked you to bully others? Now you've experienced the feeling of eating a fly?" Chu Yang stood up and walked in energetically. Inside were the injured members of the Xiao clan. The moment Chu Yang entered the door, the smile in his eyes had already turned into a cruel and vicious one. "You actually cut open my purple crystals? You're really fuck. If I don't have fuck, how would I be worthy of those broken chi and of those spiritual aura of those broken Xiao of his with his hands, Zhao's and Xiao, a Xiao was to Xiao of his Xiao of the to him, of he too was stopped. Of Xiao of the Zhao's. Everyone was an expert. How could they not know that the person had fainted while screaming? They couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. The person inside is famous for not being afraid of death and pain. Yet he actually screamed so miserably. Then, how much pain must he be in? Screams of agony came from the inside, and the people outside broke out in a cold sweat. After a long time after the last scream, which sounded as if his heart was about to be vomited out, divine Dr. Chu walked out slowly. Next. He felt a little weak again. The screams didn't stop. This wasn't a clinic. It was a slaughterhouse. It had been dark for 2 hours. The night wind was blowing, accompanied by the screams. This place was as scary as hell. After finishing the fourth person, Chu Yang was already drifting in the wind. His steps were light and he even fell down. He didn't look for Chu Fian anymore. Instead, he went directly to Xiao Yulong and smiled sincerely. "Steward Xiao, please help me recover." "You're fast." Xiao Yulong's nose was crooked. Sure enough, he's treating me as a worker, but what Chu Yang said was reasonable. "You're fast." Now the people of the Xiao clan were waiting for treatment. Everyone was in an abyss of suffering. "If you're fast, you'll suffer less." So they all looked at Xiao Yulong with pleading eyes. Xiao Yulong gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. He squeezed out a smile. That's how it should be. Then he continued to work. As soon as Xiao Yulong channeled his martial arts, Divine Dr. Chu moaned rhythmically, like a wild cat calling for spring. Xiao Yulong's hair stood on end and he almost vomited out his food. "Damn it, those who can see will of course know that I'm helping you recover. Those who can't see and hear this sound will think that I'm moaning?" This cycle repeated. When the treatment of the 22 people of the Xiao clan was completed, the moon was already high in the sky. Xiao Yulong's face was pale and he was weak. Half of it was because he was tired, half of it was because he was angry, and some of it was because he was shy. Anyone who heard a man moaning and moaning a few times would feel like this. In the end, Divine Dr. Chu just touched Xiao Yulong's hand and didn't start to deliver the medicine, but he called out. Everyone looked at Xiao Yulong with ambiguous eyes. No matter how thick-skinned Xiao Yulong and Steward Xiao were, they also felt as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Xiao Yulong brought the people of the Xiao clan and left the place almost at the speed of light. When they left, Chu Fian could see that even Xiao Yulong's neck had turned red. At this time, the people of the Bao clan had already sent the purple crystals over. Then it was the people of the Bao clan and the Liao clan. Xiao Yulong dared to cut the purple crystals, but these people definitely didn't dare to. If another clan did this, Chu Fian would definitely kill them immediately. There was no doubt about this. The treatment went on till dawn. Finally it was finished. No one realized that Divine Dr. Chu's treatment speed had gradually sped up. It was just that when boiling a frog in warm water, the frog would be scooped out before the water boiled. So no one realized it. What Chu Yang couldn't figure out was, why didn't Qin Baoshan, who was in charge of the Hall of Justice, come? Could it be that he could treat himself? This couldn't be, right? Although the finger that day wasn't the yin-yang soul-dispersing hand, it was also the unique skill of the first-generation Calamity Sword Master, Meridian Sealing Finger. Now, the sword spirit had transformed it into Meridian Shattering Finger. If old Qin didn't come in 3 days, his arm would really be crippled. Moreover, the people of the other clans had come, but the people of the Chu clan didn't? What was going on? Not only Chu Yang couldn't figure out this matter, but Chu Fian also couldn't figure it out. They busied themselves all the way until daybreak. Only then did they send off the evil spirits. The uncle and nephew duo immediately closed the door and lay down on the bed. "I'm so tired," Chu Fian groaned. After lying on the bed for a while, he got up again. "But it's worth it. So many purple crystals, haha. It's so satisfying. I've never earned so many purple crystals in a single day in my entire life. This feeling is too blissful." "Fourth uncle, what are you talking about? There are 2 problems with your words." Chu Yang raised 2 fingers. "What are the 2 problems?" Chu Fian was stunned. "Firstly, these purple crystals were earned by me in a day, not by you. Secondly, most of these purple crystals are mine. So I should say that I'm blissful, but you can only say that it's satisfying. I'll strangle you, you little brat." Chu Fian was furious and was about to pounce on Chu Yang to teach him a lesson. "Stop." Chu Yang raised his hand. "Fourth uncle, let's settle the accounts first and see how much we earned today." The uncle and nephew pounced on the huge pile of purple crystals like money grubbers. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 10 pieces, 50 pieces, 100 pieces, 100 pieces, 100 pieces, 180 pieces, 355 pieces. Chu Fian gasped. Complete purple crystals, 470 pieces. My God. This is the Chu clan's income for half a year, and it's much more than that. This is the income of thousands of people in our clan. Chu Yang snorted and said, "Can those incomplete ones be used?" "There's no effect when the purple crystals are cut. Only a lot of spiritual energy will leak out from the cut, but it's not a big deal," Chu Fian said, "but it's hard to swallow this." "Indeed." Chu Yang agreed. As he spoke, he kept all the purple crystals into a big bag and beamed with delight. Then he took out 10 pieces of broken purple crystals to make up 5 pieces. "Fourth uncle, take these and use them." Chu Fian looked at the mountain-like bag in Chu Yang's hands and then looked at the 5 pieces in his own hands. He was a little dazed. What? To split the loot? Chu Yang said matter-of-factly, "Fourth uncle, you've worked hard today. Use these purple crystals to nourish your body. Let's continue tomorrow." Chu Fian looked at him in a daze and then looked down at the purple crystals in his hands. Then he raised his head and slowly opened his mouth. "I only have these?" Chu Yang had already picked up the bag and walked to the door. "Fourth uncle, don't think it's too much. We'll have a lot of money in the future." Then he left. Chu Fian was stunned in the room. After a long time he rushed out furiously, "Bastard! Stop right there. Do you really think that I'll drink the soup while you eat the meat? You only gave me 5 pieces of this much. I'm your fucking uncle. Do you think I'm a beggar?" After shouting furiously for a while, he realized that Big Boss Chu had already disappeared. Chu Fian panted heavily and walked back and forth in the courtyard. He jumped back and forth and scolded, "Little bastard! You've gone too far. Little bastard! You've gone too far. I'm so pissed off. Don't let me see you. As long as I see you. Yes, you'll go and confess in front of grandfather. Say that you found me but didn't bring me back." Big Boss Chu walked out of his room with a smile on his face. He looked elegant and at ease. Chu Fian stared at him. After a long time he sighed and wanted to cry. "You'll continue to bully me? I didn't even cry when Xiao Yulong humiliated me earlier. Now I actually want to cry." He really wanted to cry. Including the broken purple crystals, there were 100 of them. They flew away from his hands just like that. He only had 5 pieces, and they were broken defective ones. Chu Yang sighed, "Fourth uncle, I took them because I can. And I have a reason to. If you take them you can only hand them to the clan. But if we hand them over, what about Lure's illness?" Chapter 758. Chu Fian suddenly realized. Chu Yang was right. He had just arrived at the upper 3 heavens. Even if he made a fortune, no one would have the nerve to take advantage of him. Moreover, the entire clan felt indebted to Chu Yang. At this time the clan had not arranged any tasks for Chu Yang. In other words, Chu Yang did not have any income now. Even this medical center was given to the clan by Chu Failing according to the market price. It was equivalent to Chu Yang's personal property. Of course, this was Chu Yang's insistence. However, facts were facts after all. On the contrary, if this wealth was in his hands, it would be different. Chu Failong only needed to obey the clan to take over the purple crystals in his hands. Then what would he use to buy medicine for Lure in the future? These purple crystals seemed to be a lot, but if he wanted to buy the 8 medicinal herbs that Chu Lure needed, it would not be enough to buy even one of them. And what would Chu Yang use to cultivate in the future? Chu Fian sighed dejectedly, "What you said makes sense. I'm just a shop assistant. These are also a lot. But Lure's illness can't be delayed. Why don't you take back these 5 crystals?" Chu Fian's words seemed to be said in a fit of pique, but they were sincere. He really wanted to do this. Chu Yang did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Fourth uncle, we'll use these cut-open purple crystals for cultivation in the future. Anyway, the energy is the same and the spiritual energy is the same. Moreover, it's impossible to use them after they've been cut open." "That's true." Chu Fian nodded and scolded, "Little brat, if there's anything in the future, tell me first. You should have told me first, motherfucker. You make fourth uncle angry every day. You're really unfilial." Chu Yang lowered his head. "Are you tired today?" Chu Fian said, "Go and rest." "Tired? How can I be tired?" Chu Yang raised his head, amused. "Tell me the truth. How long would it take to treat these people?" Chu Fian was always curious about this point. Chu Yang came out exhausted every time. Although he knew that it was fake, Chu Fian's heart still shrank. This guy's acting was too realistic. "It should." Chu Yang frowned and calculated, "It shouldn't take more than 2 hours." Chu Fian was speechless. "You were able to treat more than 10 people in 2 hours, but you dragged it out for more than an entire night, tormenting those people until they were half dead? He even received a mountain of wealth." At this moment, Chu Fian looked at his nephew with admiration. "Fourth uncle, with these funds in our hands we can basically start looking for the medicine." Chu Yang tapped the purple bamboo beside him with his finger and said slowly, "The information and the rewards. Fourth uncle, I'll leave this to you." "Isn't this too little?" Chu Feiyan was shocked. "What's the use of this?" Chu Yang said, "You don't have to worry about this. More will come. I just need you to release the mission first. And I know that to issue a mission you need to pay a commission. 7 missions. These 400 purple crystals are only for the initial commission. It's more than enough. Chu Feiyan said, you're right. Which organization are you going to use? What channels do you use? Use blood payers. Chu Yang said heavily. Blood payers. Chu Feiyan was shocked. Blood payers are the most expensive to issue a mission. No matter what the mission is, you need to pay 50 purple crystals as commission. And, after the mission is completed, you'll take 30% of the reward as commission. Finally, when you hand over the mission, you'll need to pay 10% of the reward as the final reward. If it's just one mission it's fine. But these are 7 medicines. That's 7 missions. These are all heavenly treasures. The cheapest one is at least 3,000 purple crystals. The most expensive one is at least tens of thousands of purple crystals. If you want to complete all of them, you'll need more than 100,000 purple crystals. How can we afford to hire them? Chu Feiyan frowned. Even the Yi clan, the #1 dominant clan, may not be able to take out so many purple crystals. You don't have to worry about purple crystals. Chu Yang's eyes flashed with blood. I just need to issue the mission first. The earlier the better. He smiled deeply. Although blood payers are expensive, they're the fastest and most efficient. Chu Feiyan was speechless for a long time. Finally he sighed, this is a dare. It's enough to make our Chu clan lose all our assets and be removed from the upper 3 heavens. Chu Yang said lightly, when the time comes, you can issue the mission anonymously. After issuing the mission, everything will be mine. It won't have anything to do with the Chu clan. Chu Feiyan was puzzled. You can just say that a senior asked you to issue the mission. A sinister smile appeared on Chu Yang's face as he said, you still want to say that this senior's cultivation is unfathomable. In addition, I also have a treasure for you to use as collateral. After you issue the mission, I will disguise myself and go to ask about the completion of the mission. At the same time I will resolve this matter. How are you going to smooth things over? Chu Feiyan groaned, do you think everyone is blind? I have my ways. Chu Yang said decisively, fourth uncle, if you want Le'er to get better quickly, you'll have to do what I say. I won't implicate the Chu clan and I won't put myself in danger. Chu Yang looked deeply at Chu Feiyan, fourth uncle, you, just trust me this time. Chu Feiyan was silent and conflicted. Finally he gritted his teeth and stomped his feet. Okay. I'll go crazy with you this time. Chu Yang nodded and looked into the distance. As he enjoyed the morning breeze, he couldn't help but think of the ancient legend, supreme martial artist Chen Feng. He sighed slightly, fourth uncle, if a person doesn't have great ambitions, he won't have great achievements. These hundreds of thousands of purple crystals must be obtained within 2 years. Furthermore, the amount must be more than this to ensure that nothing goes wrong. This is a heavy pressure. But it's also an unparalleled motivation. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, as long as you're not overwhelmed by this pressure. All miracles are actually created by people. Who knows if we can't create another miracle in our hands? Chu Feiyan was full of pride and said loudly, yes. He gritted his teeth, let's do it. That's my fourth uncle. Chu Yang chuckled. Chu Feiyan smiled helplessly and shook his head, little rascal. He pondered for a while. He said, Chu Yang, do you feel it? You've changed into someone else? Chu Yang sat on the stone stool between the purple bamboos and stroked the purple bamboos. Oh? Both of us are here, so let's not talk like we're strangers. When you were in the lower 3 heavens you controlled everything. You were the king of Hell Chu in black robes and black clothes. You were cold and stern. As you chatted, millions of Diwu Qingrou's troops were annihilated. At that time you were so steady and magnanimous. Chu Feiyan pondered and said carefully, but now you've become slippery and a little out of tune. You make others think that you're a child. I don't believe that this is your true love. Chu Yang looked at Chu Feiyan with interest. Fourth uncle, do you mean that my true love is like the king of Hell Chu in the lower 3 heavens? Yes, Chu Feiyan said sincerely, the king of Hell Chu is a legend. Chu Yang smiled faintly and shook his head. Fourth uncle, you're wrong. He stroked the purple bamboos with his hand and looked far away. He said softly, times have changed. In the lower 3 heavens, I had to be like that in order to complete my tasks. Now, in the upper 3 heavens, the king of Hell Chu who used to be all-powerful is just a nobody who can be bullied by anyone. If I were to show my steady and magnanimous attitude now, who would I be? Who would I show my authority to? Even in the Chu clan no one would fall for it. They would try their best to reject it. Chu Yang was obviously in pain. Moreover, once this gets out, it would give people the impression that the Chu clan has just found a new Grand Duke. He's scheming and shrewd. He's a scary person. He needs to be taken care of. Chu Yang smiled. Then I'll be in danger. I might even become a pile of bones before I can grow up. But I'm not willing to be lonely. Chu Yang's slender fingers stroked a piece of bamboo. So, since we're all seniors here, what's wrong with me showing off? Any external appearance is just a performance. What's really important is the result. What I can achieve by being a hooligan, I might not be able to achieve by being a righteous ruler. Similarly, I'm calm and steady in the lower three heavens, but I have to tuck my tail between my legs in the upper three heavens. I've always been very accurate about my position. In the lower three heavens, no one can do anything to me. So, in front of everyone, I have the image of someone who has great foresight and great foresight. Because that's the only way people will believe me. But in the upper three heavens, I've become calm and steady. Because the upper three heavens is different from the lower three heavens. The martial world in the upper three heavens is chaotic and frivolous. Now that I'm in the upper three heavens, I know how big the world is. So, I immediately changed my position. I'm just a teenager who's about to turn 10 years old. That's all. Everyone is guarding against someone who's full of schemes and schemes. Who would care about a slick teenager? Chu Yang turned back lightly. Now, it's not the time for me to be arrogant. Chu Fian was dumbfounded. He said repeatedly, I see. After thinking for a while, he didn't give up and asked, then, in the upper three heavens, the lower three heavens and the upper three heavens, which one of you is the real you? Chu Yang tilted his head and thought for a while. Finally, he smiled. It's all me. Because no matter where I am, no matter what corner I am in, I will be able to enjoy the fun of that corner very quickly. Thus, I can devote myself wholeheartedly. In the lower three heavens, what I enjoy is power. It was the exhilarating feeling of starting from nothing, of starting from scratch, of turning the tables on adversity, and of turning the tides. In the upper three heavens, what I enjoy is secretly planning and advancing step by step. The winds and clouds of the world move for me. What I enjoy is brotherly love and friendship. But in the upper three heavens, what I enjoy is freedom and recklessness. It's a kind of frivolity after I've completely let go. Actually, during this period of time in the upper three heavens, I've been frivolous and sly. It's a kind of fun that I haven't enjoyed since I was young. Chu Yang said deeply and contentedly, although there are schemes and conflicts here, there's a home, a father and mother, a root and a reliance here. Chu Fian didn't speak for a long time. At this moment, he suddenly felt the desolation in Chu Yang's heart. Outside the door, the sound of horse hooves suddenly sounded and rushed in like a gust of wind. Chapter 759. Hearing the sound of horses galloping towards them, both uncle and nephew knew that they were here for divine Dr. Chu. But both of their expressions didn't change. Have you kept the purple crystals well? Chu Fian asked. Don't worry, it's much safer with me than with you. Chu Yang smiled. Of course they still have to be spent through your hands. So, if someone comes to me for treatment, I'll go alone. And you, set off from here to issue the mission. You'll go alone? Chu Fian looked at him with uncertainty. Can you? Chu Yang smiled and pointed to his mouth and hands. My medical skills can determine life and death, and my words are comparable to 100,000 soldiers. Fourth uncle, I'm the king of Hell Chu. Chu Fian laughed. I believe you. King of Hell Chu is indeed the king of Hell Chu. You're really capable. Hurried footsteps came from the door. But the sound of footsteps was consistent. Although the footsteps were hurried, one could clearly hear the calmness of the person. Chu Fian heard the footsteps and smiled. Your father is here. Sure enough, Chu Feiling's voice sounded before he finished. Yang, where are you? Chu Yang replied, I'm here. He asked curiously, Fourth uncle, you can tell from the footsteps? Chu Fian smiled. Your father has always walked like this since he was young. When I was young, your third uncle and I would lie down at the door and listen. We bet that we wouldn't mistake the footsteps of your brothers. Chu Yang replied with an oh, and his heart couldn't help but be moved. Just by the footsteps he could tell who it was. How attentive were they? It was enough to show the deep friendship between his father and his brothers. Chu Fian said sadly, actually your second uncle was originally very cute. Before he finished, Chu Feiling rushed in. Yang, come back with me. Many people in the clan are injured. No wonder our people only came now. It turns out that my second uncle went to ask for help. Chu Yang smiled. That's not the case, Chu Feiling said. Your second uncle isn't at home at all. I don't know where he went. After those people were sent home, the old ancestor was alerted. The old ancestor treated them for half a night, but to no avail. Only then did he hear that you could treat them here. But at that time you were too busy here. If our Chu family transported it over, I'm afraid there would be a fierce conflict on the spot. So the old ancestor ordered us to wait until you were done with your work. Chu Yang frowned. But that way I'll have to endure another night of pain. If we don't suffer one more night of pain, countless lives will be lost once the conflict breaks out. Which is more important? Chu Failing said, what's more, the Chu clan is not stable now. It's not good to have a conflict at this juncture. Jiang thought for a while. That's true. Then he said, I have some matters to discuss with fourth uncle, and then I'll go home with you immediately. Chu Failing readily agreed. Chu Yang pulled Chu Fi into his room. He dug under the bed and took out a big parcel. Fourth uncle, go quickly. Chu Fian was almost angered to death. You said that it would be foolproof, but you just put it under the bed so casually? Chu Yang widened his eyes. What's wrong with it? Chu Fian was so angry that his stomach was full of shit. He snatched the parcel, changed his clothes, put on his clothes and jumped over the wall. Then the sound of horse hooves sounded outside, and he went far away like thunder. Of course, Chu Yang didn't really put it under the bed. That was just a gesture. In fact, he took it out from the tribulation space. But this matter couldn't be explained. Seeing Chu Fian go far away, Chu Yang smiled and went out with Chu Failing. Chu Failing cursed loudly and was flustered. This bastard. He rode my horse away. Doesn't he know that there are so many people in the family waiting for you to save them? The older he gets, the more unreliable he is. Chu Yang was stunned. It turned out that the horse that Chu Fian rode away was Chu Failing's horse. The next moment, Chu Yang only felt his body shake and he was already in the air. The scenery on both sides was constantly moving backward. It turned out that he was already on Chu Failing's shoulder and running forward. Father, you run so fast. Chu Yang praised. Chu Failing slapped his buttocks. Don't call me that. Chu Yang was depressed. He stretched out a hand and rubbed his buttocks. He was extremely sad. Being a person wasn't as good as being a sworn brother. Back then he was so enthusiastic and fearful. Now he scolded and hit him as soon as he opened his mouth. Thinking about this, he couldn't help but sigh. Why are you sighing? Chu Failing asked sensitively. I'm thinking about what happened in the three heavens. Things really change quickly. Chu Yang sighed. Chu Failing immediately shut his mouth and ran forward with a flushed face. But he turned Chu Yang's body over, and his shoulder pressed against Chu Yang's stomach. The whole journey was bumpy. Little brat, who asked you to poke at my scar? Chu Failing thought fiercely in his heart. Big Boss Chu's stomach was overturned by Chu Yang's shoulder, and he vomited all the way to the Chu clan. I shouldn't have been greedy for a moment of pleasure. Minister Chu was extremely regretful. He didn't expect this old man's temper to be so fiery. He actually managed to get back at him without leaving a trace. In the blink of an eye, Chu Failing landed in the courtyard of the Chu clan like a meteor. His body flashed twice and he was already in the hall. Chu Yang's martial power hadn't recovered yet, and he was carried so far. When he landed, he immediately felt dizzy. He spun 3 rounds like a top, and only felt that the sky was full of stars and the galaxy was shining in front of him. After vomiting for a while, he woke up from his heavy state. Then he heard screams in the hall. You're Chu Yang? Failing's child who was left outside? An elegant voice asked lightly. Chu Failing's voice sounded, Why aren't you greeting your elder? Chu Yang turned his head and saw an old man in front of him. He had a thin face, wore a green robe and had a slender figure. He looked like he was in his 70s. His eyes were looking at him calmly and he was sizing him up. Elder. Chu Yang stepped forward, knelt down hurriedly and kowtowed a few times. He knew that although this old man looked like he was in his 70s, he was estimated to be at least 300 or 400 years old. He was the Chu clan's stabilizing force, and their last pillar of support. He was also the top expert in the entire clan. No need for formalities, get up. The elder sized him up carefully and frowned, saying, Treat their injuries first. After you're done, let your grandfather send you to me. After he finished speaking, he flicked his green robe and mysteriously disappeared from the hall. Only then did Chu Yang realize that the hall was full of people. His grandfather, Chu Xiongqing, was standing not far away from him, looking at him with eyes full of gratification. When he came in just now, all his attention seemed to have been attracted by the elder's words, and he didn't notice anything else. It was as if that green figure was the core of the whole world. Other than that, there was nothing else. Chu Yang was shocked. What kind of cultivation is this? The sword spirit exclaimed in Chu Yang's consciousness space and said, "This elder of your Chu clan has a pretty good cultivation. Why is your Chu clan curled up here? Logically speaking, with such a cultivation base, he should be able to own a larger territory." Chu Yang asked. "The cultivation base of this old ancestor of yours is more than 10 times the cultivation base that Dukyu is displaying right now." The sword spirit said heavily, "Your elder is about to break through the heavenly man realm and reach the level of martial saint. And this kind of unintentional and soul-stirring aura is the precursor to his breakthrough." The sword spirit said, "Actually, he didn't do it deliberately, but at such a moment he couldn't control the leakage of his aura. How can a real expert be so aggressive?" "I see." Chu Yang was shocked. Level of martial saint? In other words, he's already at the peak of the 5th stage of martial saint? Chu Yang was puzzled. Dukyu is said to be at the peak of the 2nd stage of martial saint, but the elder is only at the 5th stage of martial saint. How can there be a difference of more than 10 times? The sword spirit snorted and said, 10 times is still too little. When one's cultivation reaches the level of martial saint, he can sense the heaven and earth, and comprehend the mysteries of the heaven and earth, as well as the principles of martial arts. Or should I say, a beginner of the 3rd stage of martial saint is twice as powerful as a peak of the 2nd stage of martial saint. There's actually such a big difference. Chu Yang was surprised. It turns out that at this level, the higher one goes, the harder it is. Otherwise, why would a martial saint expert be trapped in a bottleneck for hundreds of years without being able to break through? And he could only die of old age with hatred in his heart. The sword spirit said indifferently, "The higher you go on the path of martial arts, the harder it gets. But the harder it is, the greater one's achievements will be after a breakthrough." "That makes sense." Chu Yang asked, "But why are you so vague? If I remember correctly, you said Dukyu's current strength, and not Dukyu's current strength. Why is that?" The sword spirit sneered. "Dukyu is the last elf of the heavenly realm after all. Do you think that the race's secret technique is worthless? He doesn't dare to reveal his true strength now. Once he reveals his true strength, he'll be hunted down by the dominant clans and the law enforcers. He can even ignore the laws of the heavenly realm when he's hunting down a foreign clan. Even if there are thousands of Dukyu, he'll only die tragically before he's fully grown. So, he'd rather be crippled and recultivate than reveal his true strength." "I see." Chu Yang nodded seriously. Suddenly he felt a strong sense of trust, because Dukyu didn't hide his identity in front of him. Chu Yang didn't dare to delay. With the help of Chu Xiongqing and the rest, he immediately treated the 10 injured people of the Chu clan. This time the speed was much faster and the pain wasn't very great. Although these people were Chu Feilong's men, they were still part of the Chu clan. Before they shed all pretense of cordiality, Chu Yang wouldn't be ruthless. He had been alone for 2 lifetimes, and had finally acknowledged his ancestors and had his own home. No one could understand how much Chu Yang valued the word, home. Seeing that everyone had been treated, Chu Xiongqing was elated. The more he looked at Chu Yang, the more he liked him. He patted Chu Yang's shoulder and said, "Let's go, I'll send you to see the elder." This is the first time that he's taken the initiative to ask to see a junior of the clan. You must grasp this opportunity well. Chapter 760. As he said this, Chu Tinghu, who had been keeping his head down, quietly raised his head and glanced at Chu Yang. Then he lowered his eyelids again. This gaze was filled with hatred and jealousy, and it was as cold as a knife. Although Chu Yang's cultivation hadn't recovered yet, his divine sense had almost completely integrated with the divine soul of the first tribulation sword master. He could indeed be called the best in the world. Of course, he had sensed the source of this gaze and also sensed the unfriendliness of this gaze. But why would Chu Yang care about him now? He turned around calmly and placed Chu Tinghu and his 2 brothers behind him. "I don't even care about your old age, let alone your young age." After informing Chu Feiling, Chu Yang followed Chu Xiongqing into the inner hall under Chu Feiling's proud and smiling gaze. After they left, they turned into a quiet path. Yang, you're very skilled in treating the injuries just now." Chu Xiongqing's broken eyebrows twitched and looked at Chu Yang with a faint smile. "Of course, I wasn't skilled at the beginning. But after a night of practice, I'm finally familiar with it now," Chu Yang said cautiously. He cleverly said that he treated the injuries of other clans as practice. If Chu Xiongqing asked, he would say, "I wasn't very good at that time and I wasn't confident." He would block the path in advance. Chu Xiongqing didn't expect this grandson to play tricks. He asked in a low voice, I don't care if you're practicing or not. I only want to ask you, were you involved in the incident 2 nights ago? The incident 2 nights ago? What incident? Jianghu was surprised. Then he suddenly realized, Grandfather, are you talking about the incident of the big clans being attacked? Chu Xiongqing stared at him with eagle-like eyes and asked in a low voice, were you involved? Chu Yang felt wronged and shouted, Grandfather, if I did it, would I still hide it from you? This is a matter of life and death for the clans. I really didn't do it. It has nothing to do with me. He thought I really didn't do it. It was the sword spirit who did it. Chu Xiongqing snorted and said, then how did you know about this treatment method? When I was in the lower three heavens, godly Dr. Du Shiqing once gave me a copy of the medical sage's medicine canon. In the lower three heavens, in the northern wastelands, I accidentally broke into a cave. The stone walls of the cave were engraved with the methods to break and neutralize all the sinister techniques from the past 10,000 years. Chu Yang did not even blink. He spoke sincerely with a heart-wrenching tone and an aggrieved face. It was the kind of depression that came from being suspected after doing a good deed. In fact, his eyes were about to burst into tears. Old Master Chu couldn't bear it anymore. Sai, look at what I've done to my grandson. Looks like it really isn't him. Since it's not you, you should lie low for the time being. Even if someone is suspicious, this old man will stand up for you. Chu Yang said naively, don't tell me that they don't feel the least bit grateful that I saved them? Are you going to deal with me instead? Old Master Chu stroked his beard and sighed, what a pure and innocent child. How can things be so simple in this world? Receiving a drop of water from someone should be repaid with a gushing spring. Repaying the debt of saving a life for a lifetime doesn't exist anymore. The way of the world now is strength. Chu Yang said angrily, this is too unfair. Patting his shoulder, Old Master Chu said earnestly, when you grow up, you will understand. Young Master Chu muttered in a daze, how can it be like this? How can it be like this? How can they be like this? Old Master Chu sighed deeply. He felt that he was a failure. The reality that he said had polluted Sun Xiaochun's pure and innocent heart. This was a huge blow to this child's pure and innocent nature. Hopefully this child will be able to recognize the evil ways of the world as soon as possible. The path gradually became desolate. Wild grass grew on both sides of the path, and wild flowers swayed in the wind. Rows and rows of all kinds of tall trees stood upright. Each tree was as thick as a few people hugging it. The branches were lush and full of birds' nests. The ground was covered with a layer of birds' nests. Walking on it, one could hear rustling sounds. It was unknown how many years it had been since it was cleaned. Walking on this desolate path, one couldn't help but feel that everything was quiet and tranquil. It was as if one was far away from the mortal world. In this wonderful feeling, the two of them didn't want to talk. They walked forward in silence. Only the sound of their own footsteps could be heard. The two of them had a feeling that this frequency could extend to the ends of the world. The sword spirit sighed somewhat disappointedly and said, see, this is the place where the strong should live. Away from the ostentatiousness, away from the hustle and bustle. Alone, accompanying the world day after day, year after year, painstakingly comprehending the mysteries of life, martial arts, and the heavenly Tao. Until one's own flesh and blood wither along with the flowers and trees, turning into soil and wind, and returning to the earth. Everyone knows that the strong can move unhindered in the world. They can turn their hands over and create clouds and rain with a flip of their hands. They are unrivaled and unrivaled. How majestic and domineering is that? But who would have thought that behind this majestic and domineering aura, there's 1,000 years of loneliness that can't be dispelled? Chu Yang felt bitter and disappointed in his heart. He asked softly, don't tell me, they don't have wives? They don't have lovers to accompany them throughout their lives? They don't have unforgettable feelings? They do. The sword spirit sighed deeply and said, but they're just like everything on the ground. The only thing that can accompany them is some memories that will never fade from their hearts. Otherwise, why is it said that it's lonely at the top? Chu Yang was silent. So, before this, among all the strong people, only a very small number of couples can reach the peak together. Such a couple may not appear even once in tens of thousands of years. The sword spirit seemed to be on guard against something, and also seemed to be sighing. So, usually such strong people walk the emotionless path. Because if they're obsessed with love, after their loved ones have passed away for so long, just the deep feelings of love in the past are enough to drive them crazy. How can they survive the long hundreds of years that follow? So, The emotionless Path Master is in charge of everything in the Chongtian continent. The sword spirit was a little worried. But you practice the emotionless path and go against the tradition of tens of thousands of years? I hope that you don't know that you. As he spoke, the sword spirit couldn't continue. He could only let out a long sigh. I look at the world with my eyes and my heart. I'm willing to be bitter and happy. If I don't become the moon in the Chongtian continent, I won't be afraid of the difficulties of reincarnation. Chuyang said quietly. The sword spirit was silent. He let out a long sigh. I'm willing to indulge myself, and I'm willing to be with my loved ones and my brothers regardless of the difficulties and hardships in the world. Even if I end up as high as the moon in the Chongtian continent, as long as my loved ones pass away, I'll accompany them in reincarnation. This was Chu Yang's answer. Who doesn't know that love is priceless? But the heavenly Tao is emotionless. You're so sentimental. What will happen in the future? The sword spirit thought silently. The two of them came to the end. It was a small courtyard. It was very simple and crude. The surrounding walls were full of withered grass. There were layers of yellow and green grass. It was so crowded that the soil on the walls couldn't be seen. Cracks were opened by the grass roots. It looked as if the wall was about to collapse. The grass on the top of the wall was even more lush. It actually sprang up a few feet and swayed in the wind. The two wooden doors were obviously made of red sandalwood. Seeing these two wooden doors, Chuyang was sure that this elder was probably more than 300 to 400 years old as he had guessed. He should be at least 700 years old, because some parts of this hard red sandalwood couldn't withstand the wind and frost, and there were large traces of decay. And Chuyang knew that if this red sandalwood was used carefully and placed in a room, it wouldn't change even after 1,000 years. Although these wooden doors had been tempered by the wind and rain outside, to be able to reach such a state, it was enough to show that they had been here for a long time. There was only one thing that was very strange. If this elder could live for such a long time, why was there no one below him? Chu Xiongqing finally said, I'll send you here. You can go in by yourself. The elder only wants to see you. Chuyang said, yes. He stretched out his hand and knocked on the wooden door. It was silent inside. Chuyang exerted some force and the wooden door opened with a creak, revealing a courtyard full of weeds. Then Chuyang walked in. He turned around and closed the wooden door with another creak, leaving Chu Xiongqing outside. He also closed the 1,000 years of loneliness outside the door. Chu Xiongqing stared blankly for a long time before he turned around and left. Chuyang turned around. The withered grass in the courtyard was very thick. The newly grown weeds were very tall. On average they could reach the height of his waist. Chuyang pushed them aside carefully. He tried his best to step on the withered grass and walked forward. There was a soft voice inside, step on the green grass, don't step on my withered grass. Chuyang was startled and did as he was told. He suddenly felt a little sour in his heart. Step on the green grass, don't step on my withered grass. From this sentence, it could be seen that this elder was a sentimental person. Perhaps, in his heart, these dead, withered grass without vitality were just like his loved ones and brothers who had passed away in the prime of his life? Chuyang suddenly understood the real reason why the elder didn't let anyone clean the courtyard. It was because he couldn't let go. The green grass under Chuyang's feet creaked and fell. After Chuyang walked over, they stood up again. Although they were a little slanted, they didn't affect their vitality. There were 3 thatched huts in the courtyard. The wooden door was wide open. The stone steps in front of the door were full of moss. On the left, there was a big green rock that was densely covered with moss. On the right, there was a big vat that was filled with rainwater. No one knew how many years it had been since it was cleaned. The vat had turned dark green and tiny red worms were rolling around in it. Come in, the voice said faintly. Chuyang finally stepped in. He stepped into this place that was full of mysteries and legends to a young martial artist. It was a place where martial saints lived. It was full of the fragrance of grass and wood. It was very clean. There was a bed, a table, and a chair in the room. Obviously, the elder didn't plan to entertain guests here. So there wasn't even a place to sit. This place belonged to him alone. On the side wall, an ancient painting was hanging quietly. On the painting there was a young girl with bright eyes and white teeth. Her eyes were full of affection as she silently watched everything in this thatched hut. The elder was dressed in green. He was standing quietly in front of this painting, looking at the person in the painting. His back was facing Chuyang. He was motionless like a statue. His back view revealed infinite desolation and loneliness. Could it be that he had spent these hundreds of years looking at this painting? Chapter 761. You're here. The old ancestor stood in front of the portrait and seemed to sigh as he spoke. That's right, the old ancestor said with a sigh. I'm here. Chu Yang knew that there was no need to reply, but at this moment he felt a little uncomfortable under the oppressive atmosphere in the room, so he spoke to break the silence. Because when the old ancestor spoke, even his voice was one with the atmosphere. If Chu Yang did not speak, he would be silent here. And Chu Yang dared to bet that as long as he did not speak, this old ancestor would be silent again. The old ancestor nodded and fell into deep thought again. Suddenly he asked brainlessly, do you know who this person in the portrait is? Who is the person in the portrait? Chu Yang was suspicious. He thought to himself, is it not the Chu clan's ancestor? Why do I have to guess? But, what was the meaning of the ancestor's question? After thinking for a while, Chu Yang said carefully, the person in the portrait is the heart. The person in the portrait is the heart. The old ancestor seemed to unconsciously repeat this sentence. Suddenly he turned back and looked deeply at Chu Yang. He said sadly, the person in the portrait is the heart. This sentence makes a lot of sense. Chu Yang said indifferently, yes, I'm painting a person of my heart. It's also a person I can't forget. Even if thousands of years have passed, even if the beauty back then has already become an old woman, I can't forget her. I often meet her in my dreams. She's still in her budding years. She's still as charming as before. Even if the years have passed, even if the bones have turned to ashes, but the freshness of the memory has condensed thousands of years into a portrait of the heart. It will never fade. Chu Yang sighed softly, I don't know who the person in the portrait is, but I know that this portrait is the heart. From the moment Chu Yang started to speak, the elder ancestor slowly turned around and looked at him quietly. The divine light in his eyes changed. In the end he seemed to be a little moist. Those eyes that had dried up for hundreds of years actually seemed to be tearing up again. Hundreds of years of worries, hundreds of years of longing and sadness, were all stirred up by Chu Yang's words. He listened attentively and tilted his head back. She fiercely held back the tears that were about to flow out. A cloud of mist rose from the corner of his eyes. The room fell silent again. After a long while, the old ancestor said softly, it seems that you have experienced a lot in the outside world these years. Chu Yang's words had stirred up his worries. But his words had evoked the joys and sorrows of Chu Yang's two lives. Chu Yang heaved a deep sigh and said, I'm all alone and helpless. I'm like a lonely shadow drifting around the world. I don't see my home. The days of rootless duckweed, it's a long story. The old ancestor nodded gently. You've also experienced many life and death situations? Yang admitted frankly. And you once had a lover who would never leave you? The grand ancestor asked again. Yes. The elder ancestor did not speak. After a long time he sighed softly. No wonder. Then he turned around and no longer stood in front of the portrait. He sat down on a chair and faced Chu Yang. He sized him up carefully and finally said, You're not bad. Chu Yang stood still and did not say anything. Your injury is in your spirit. But it's not that your spirit is damaged. Instead, your spirit is overflowing and has affected your meridians. The old ancestor looked at him and said softly, This is not an injury but a blessing. As long as it can be digested, all the disadvantages will disappear immediately. And you will have a strong spirit from now on. The other book friends are reading. It seems that you've obtained some unknown inheritance and fortuitous encounter. You're not injured. The old ancestor lowered his eyelids and said, Is that right? Yes. Chu Yang was surprised. He did not expect the old ancestor's eyes to be so sharp. He could see the crux of his problem at a glance. This time I came out of seclusion to treat your injury. But although you don't need treatment now, I'm not disappointed. The old ancestor's eyes flashed with satisfaction. To be able to see such a talent in the Chu clan, I've gained a lot from my seclusion this time. It's a great relief. Chu Yang smiled slightly. You think too highly of me, old ancestor. The latest chapter of the Saint Hall. You're not worthy of my praise. The old ancestor snorted and said, It's been 510 years since Chu Tsonghuan's descendant. Finally, another talent has appeared. Chu Tsonghuan? Chu Yang remembered that he had seen this name on the memorial tablet when he was worshipping the ancestors. He was the first-generation ancestor of the Chu clan. I only hope that you won't be as arrogant and unyielding as Chu Tsonghuan. It's the best thing that you can understand. The old ancestor sighed. Old ancestor, please guide me. Chu Yang bowed and said, Sit. The old ancestor smiled slightly. Chu Yang looked around and could not help but wonder, where should I sit? I can't sit on the floor anyway. Chu Yang frowned and suddenly smiled freely. He sat cross-legged on the floor just like that. The old ancestor's eyes were smiling. He picked up the teapot from the table, opened the drawer and took out a wooden box. Chu Yang glanced at it and was shocked. This wooden box was dotted with stars as if the whole universe was shining on it. This was actually starwood. Legend had it that even a little powder was thousands of times more valuable than purple crystals. Starwood was recognized as the #1 treasure in the heavens continent. It would take 1,000 years to grow an inch but not 10,000 years. This was starwood. It would take 1,000 years to grow an inch but not 10,000 years. If one wanted to use it, they would need starwood that was hundreds of thousands of years old and above. And other than not rotting after 10,000 years, the biggest specialty of starwood was that it was magical. This was because a container made of starwood could be used as a spatial container. Could contain everything. Furthermore, the older the starwood, the more things it could contain. Even the powder of starwood, if it fell into the hands of a supreme martial artist, could be refined with the supreme martial artist swallowing rivers and mountains technique. So, the preciousness of starwood could be imagined. After so many years, starwood had long disappeared from the heavens continent. He did not expect to find such a big wooden box here, and it was actually used as a tea box. This box was half the size of a head. Its preciousness was really rare in the heavens continent. As if sensing Chu Yang's surprise, the elder master smiled indifferently, "You're quite knowledgeable. But don't think that I'm rich. In fact, my most precious thing now is this box." Chu Yang laughed. When the wooden box was opened, a burst of tea fragrance rushed out. The elder master took out a small pinch and placed it in the teapot. Then he waved his hands and a gust of wind blew outside. But looking carefully, even the grass did not move. The elder master waved his hand, and a strong spiritual energy of heaven and earth flew in from the room. It condensed in the room and then turned into a ball of clear water. Fine and silent, it poured into the teapot. Then the teapot in the elder master's hand emitted a faint steam and slowly boiled. And that refreshing tea fragrance also became stronger and stronger. The elder master's face was very calm, and he was concentrating on doing all this. But Chu Yang looked at his face through the rising steam, and at this moment he actually felt a little illusory as if there was some distant sadness. Only then did he notice that although there was no bench here and only one teapot, there were 5 teacups. This tea is from 700 years ago. The elder master lowered his eyelids and looked at the tea in the teapot, which had turned from dry to tender green. His eyes were full of love as he said, "In order to preserve this tea, I got this heavenly starwood box. For this wooden box, I killed 17 people from the Ling clan, and also caused the Chu clan to be content with their territory." Chu Yang secretly clicked his tongue. For a wooden box, he killed 17 people from the Ling clan, one of the dominant clans, and was still alive. It seemed that this elder master was also a lawless person in the past. Don't think that I'm very powerful. It's just that at that time, the dominant clan signed an agreement with the law enforcement officers, and all the supreme martial artists and 7th grade martial saints and above rushed to the law enforcement hall. And at that time I had a chance to take advantage of it. The elder master laughed. Chu Yang curled his lips and thought, "You dared to steal from the Ling clan and the Ling clan didn't retaliate against you. Instead they let you live until now and didn't take back the item. This proves a lot. What's the use of being modest? This tea was left behind by this elder master of yours. The reason why I stole this box was to store this tea. I thought that if I didn't succeed I would die there, but I didn't expect it to succeed." The elder master played down the story and didn't go into detail about the process. Chu Yang sighed. He knew what this meant. His beloved wife was dead and he had nothing to live for. Therefore he wanted to steal this box to preserve what his beloved wife had left behind. If he didn't succeed he would follow her. What kind of deep love was this? The elder master's eyes were full of memories as he smiled indulgently. At that time her family had a tea garden. When I first met her it was at the tea garden. She was picking tea leaves and her white robes fluttered with golden hoops. The fragrance of the tea lingered in the air and the elder master's face was heavy. At that time I asked her if the tea was fragrant or her. She said. At this point he suddenly woke up and laughed. "I'm old, I'm so annoying when I'm old." I was very touched when I heard that. Chu Yang laughed. "Then, in order to preserve these tea leaves, you caused the Chu clan to be in such a state. Do you regret it?" The elder master shook his head and sighed. "What's there to regret when my heart is at peace? Chuyang laughed. The elder master lifted the teapot and poured the tea into the teacups. The tea was green, and its fragrance filled the air. He seemed to have forgotten, and he seemed to be absent-minded. He actually filled all 5 teacups to the brim. Then he took a teacup for himself. After hesitating for a long time, he picked a teacup and handed it to Chuyang. I used to have 3 brothers and they often drank tea here. Every time, my wife would sit beside me and personally brew tea for us. The teacup you're using now is my second brother's? The elder master looked at the teacup with some reluctance. There's a small chip on the teacup and my second brother used his fingernails to remove it. Now he's gone but the teacup is still here. With the teacup it's like my beloved wife and them are still here. Chapter 762. The old man said softly as he looked at the book with a gentle gaze. At this moment, there was actually a feeling of being in high spirits. The other book friends were reading as well. It was as if at this moment, those long-lost brothers had gathered here again. They were chatting and laughing, calling each other elder brother and sister-in-law. They were having a joyous gathering. The way he looked at Chuyang was as if he was looking at another person. Chuyang knew that the old man was not looking at him at all, but his second brother. Chuyang listened quietly. Suddenly, a sour feeling rose in his heart. If one day Mo Qingwu left, Gu Duxing GMO and the rest also left one after another, and he was the only one left in the world, would he be like this old man? The years were long and he had to spend alone. Lonely and cold. Only the long time and the memories that were engraved in his heart would accompany him? If that was the case, how could he endure it? 10 years before your ancestor passed away, she had personally brewed 3,000 caddies of tea for me in the tea garden. She knew that I was not used to drinking tea that was brewed and picked by others. So, she personally brewed it for me. The old man chuckled and said, her last request was, if I am going to die, I must finish drinking this tea before I die. I am only allowed to drink 1 cup of tea a day. If I die before I finish, she will not care about me in the underworld. The old man pointed at the teacup in Chuyang's hand. I have already drunk a pot of tea today. Since you came, I brewed another pot. So, tomorrow I will not drink any more. If I drink too much, she will be angry. With a smile, he pointed at the wall behind him. She is watching. Chuyang's throat moved a little. He looked at the tea in front of him quietly. He suddenly felt that this tea was love. He could not bear to drink it. He didn't know why the old ancestor had called him here. Right now, he only wanted to be a qualified listener, to read a good novel. He wanted to be a witness and be influenced by this love and brotherhood that would never change in life and death, that would always be new even after thousands of years. The two of them were silent. Time passed just like that. Why are you not drinking? The old man asked after a long time. It is like love. I can't bear to drink it. Chuyang raised his head and said softly. Tea like love must be drunk. The old man looked at him solemnly. If you don't drink it now, it's not because you can't bear it, but because you're cruel. This is blasphemy. Yes. Chuyang's whole body trembled as he came to a realization. Tea is like life. The old man calmly said, when it's time to drink, we must drink. Don't wait for the tea to turn cold. If you drink it again, it won't have the same taste. At that time, there will only be regret. He looked deeply into Chuyang's eyes and asked, do you understand? Chuyang pondered for a long time, and a trace of enlightenment appeared in his eyes. I understand. He suddenly realized that the old man was using this cup of tea to impart to him the truth of life, the comprehension of the heavenly Tao, and the realm of martial arts. However, in order to assimilate into this realm, one had to enter the story and experience it personally. Then, at the last moment, he used this sudden and unexpected method to shout at the top of his head. To let him have an epiphany as if he had become a Buddha. Chuyang couldn't help but feel respect and admiration. The old man didn't use a high level of cultivation. Everything was like a small bridge and flowing water. When the conditions were right, success would come naturally. He inadvertently led Chuyang into an epiphany. It was effortless. This kind of realm and technique was miraculous. Seeing that Chuyang understood, the old man's eyes were filled with gratification. Chuyang picked up the teacup and slowly drank a mouthful of tea. The tea was still warm and it tasted great. Chuyang only felt a clear stream of fragrance flowing from his throat into his throat and into his stomach. Everywhere it passed there was a smoothness. He couldn't help but praise sincerely, good tea. Ancestor is indeed worthy of being called the tea sage. The old man instantly became happy and even a little proud. He said, your ancestor is called the tea sage. His voice was filled with self-satisfaction. It was as if a person praising his wife's tea was already the highest achievement in his life. He was extremely proud. It's worthy of its name. Chu Yang said sincerely, if Ancestor is willing, I would like to. Don't even mention it. The old man said discontentedly, you wish. Although he was discontented, he couldn't hide his pride anymore. What a pity. Chu Yang sighed. The old man laughed and said, I asked you to come today because, firstly, you're young. Secondly, your cultivation is still passable. Thirdly, you're a blessed person. Fourthly, I like you. Fifthly, I'll fulfill your wish this time. Chu Yang said, oh? You're young, but you're already a first-stage martial emperor. If you subdue the power of the divine spirit that's troubling you, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. The old man narrowed his eyes and said, there might not even be one in hundreds of thousands of years. Even if there is, their intelligence will be destroyed by the huge divine spirit and they'll become stupid. How can such an ancient divine spirit be passed down until now be ordinary? But you've withstood it. Once it's digested, your divine spirit will be number one in the universe. If this isn't great fortune, then what is? The old man said. Chu Yang smiled bitterly in his heart. If you know how much I've suffered for this, you won't think that this is fortune. You're young, not even 10 years old, and a first-stage martial emperor. The other readers are reading. Of course, it's nothing if you're only a first-stage martial emperor at 10 years old. Your brother Chu Tinghu is already a third-stage martial emperor, and he's even younger than you. The old man said, however, he's been raised in a greenhouse and hasn't seen much wind and rain. Although he's scheming, he only uses it on his own people. He's not a hero. But you've become a martial emperor in the lower three heavens, barehanded, single-handedly, and without anyone to rely on. This shows that you're smart, intelligent, and calm. In this aspect, the other juniors of the Chu clan will never be able to catch up to him. His tone was full of disdain. Chu Yang smiled and remained silent. It seemed that whatever he said wouldn't be appropriate. But the old man didn't let him go. He narrowed his eyes and looked at him, asking softly, King of Hell Chu, Minister Chu, Pavilion Master Chu, what I said, is it? Chu Yang almost jumped up. The old man pointed out his three identities in one sentence. King of Hell Chu was his nickname, Minister Chu was his official position in the lower three heavens, and Pavilion Master Chu was his heavenly armament pavilion master in the lower three heavens. How did he know these things? Besides Chu Feiling and Chu Fian, who knew half of these things, the others, including Chu Xiongqing, didn't know. And Chu Feiling and Chu Fian would never confront each other face to face. The old man narrowed his eyes and smiled. I've heard what you said to Chu Fian. You should know that in this house I can hear whatever I want to hear. There's no hindrance. And you've just returned, but you're the person I'm most interested in. Chu Yang was surprised. The old man continued, I've also heard some of what you said to your father. Chu Yang was stunned. The old man laughed. I've seen you in the northern wastelands of the lower three heavens before. And I've also met Elder Ning once. He smiled. You should also understand now. When I killed the Ling clan's people and stole their things, the person who protected me was Ning Qinya, Elder Ning. Chu Yang suddenly understood. So that's how it is. When I was in the northern wastelands, there were countless experts and I didn't meet many of them. It turns out that this elder was also there at that time. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, thinking, fortunately, you only called me King of Hell Chu, Minister Chu, and Pavilion Master Chu, and didn't call me Sword Master Chu. Otherwise, I'd really be shocked to the point of fainting. The old man looked at him quietly. You don't have to worry that I'll reveal anything for you. If you want to keep a low profile, if you want to endure silently, if you want to accumulate strength, that's your business. But since I know about you, I know that the future of the Chu clan is on you. Chu Yang blushed with shame. Elder, you're exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating. The old man smiled coldly. So, when it's time for you to kill the Chu clan's people, don't be soft-hearted. Chu Yang was shocked and he suddenly raised his head, only to meet the old man's penetrating eyes. Remember, the old man said solemnly, the clan is your backing, but, more often than not, the clan is a hindrance. If you can't forge the clan into a solid block of iron, then don't rely on the clan for anything. Don't tell the clan any secrets. That will be the beginning of your failure. Do you understand? Although the old man was talking about the Chu clan, his words were cold and murderous. I understand. But Chu Yang's face showed that he was struggling. No buts. The old man cut him off. Some people can't accomplish anything, but they're good at spoiling things. What's wrong with killing them? He said coldly. Maybe you're worried that after you kill them, your parents will be sad and your grandfather will be sad. But let me tell you, if you don't want them to be sad, then you'll have to sacrifice the future of the Chu clan, your own life, and even the lives of your entire family. Chu Yang shivered. I understand. When you leave here, I'll give you something. Then you can give it to Chu Xiongqing and he'll understand what I mean. The old man closed his eyes slightly. Yang Dao suddenly remembered something and asked, May I ask, old ancestor, how many years has it been since your ancestral mother? 703 years, the old man said softly. May I ask what elder ancestor's cultivation level was 703 years ago? Chu Yang asked. When I was young, I had a fortuitous encounter and ate a golden ginseng. The old man smiled. 703 years ago, I was already at the peak of 4th stage martial saint. Chu Yang was shocked. Then you, the old man smiled and said, you want to ask about my current cultivation level? I'm now at the peak of 5th stage martial saint. Chu Yang was silent. What he wanted to ask was, why did you only break through one stage after so many years? Now that he had said this, he didn't hide anymore and asked directly. The old man's face was full of disappointment. If I wanted to break through, I would have broken through to Supreme Martial Artist. I can't go up to 3rd stage Supreme Martial Artist, but 2nd stage Supreme Martial Artist is stable. But I tried my best to suppress my cultivation and not break through. Even this breakthrough was to extend my lifespan so that I could finish the task of drinking 1,500 kilograms of tea. I had no other choice. If I break through again, I'm afraid I won't have any tea to drink in the future. But now, I'm actually going to break through the bottleneck that I've suppressed for 450 years. It's really distressing. Chu Yang was shocked and sorrowful. He finally came to his senses. Could it be that you're cultivating the path of sentiment? Chapter 763. Chu Yang stood up in shock. At this moment he actually lost his composure. His eyes were wide open as he stared at this elder. His heart was in turmoil. The sword spirit in Chu Yang's consciousness couldn't help but shudder. He opened his eyes and looked at this elder of the Chu clan through Chu Yang's body. His eyes were full of surprise. Even he didn't expect this elder of the Chu clan to actually cultivate the heaven-defying path of emotions. The current Chu Yang still didn't really understand what the real path of emotions was and how difficult it was to cultivate it. But the sword spirit had experienced the ups and downs of the human world for 10,000 years. He knew very well that the path of emotions was harder than ascending to heaven to cultivate it. But this elder of the Chu clan cultivated the path of emotions and actually broke through all the way to the peak of 5th grade martial saint. Moreover, he was still desperately suppressing his cultivation. Otherwise, he would have already reached 2nd grade Supreme Martial Artist. He had been here for 703 years. From what he said, his wife's cultivation didn't seem to be high. That meant that he was at most 1,000 years old. Then, how did he cultivate to such a level in such a short period of time? The path of emotions was filled with inner demons at every step. The path of emotions. The elder raised his head. His expression was full of disappointment. Chu Yang could clearly see the wind and clouds changing on his face at this moment. It was as if thousands of years had turned into white clouds and light mist, quietly flowing past his face. At this moment, his thin face was full of longing, no regrets and deep feelings. The only thing that wasn't there was sadness and despair. Chu Yang looked at him in a daze. At this moment, there was a sudden illusion in front of his eyes. It wasn't clouds or fog. What he saw was the passage of time. Life, old age, sickness, death, the vicissitudes of life. Vaguely, Chu Yang seemed to see him meeting his wife in the tea garden. At that time he was young and handsome. His beauty was alluring, gentle and affectionate. He was surrounded by green grass and green tea garden. The breeze blew gently and the white clouds were intoxicating. Just by looking at each other, their hearts fell. It was love at first sight. From then on, their feelings were deeply rooted and they never left each other. From then on, they depended on each other in life and death, helping each other in times of need. It was as if he could see him reuniting with his brothers. From then on, he would ride his horse and roam the pugilistic world, repaying his debts of gratitude and vengeance as he rebuked the world. When they were happy, even if they had to travel to the ends of the earth, they would travel day and night to get drunk together, just to share their joy with their brothers. When they were in danger, they would be the king's shield, pushing left and right to persuade, but none of them would leave, sharing life and death together. When they were in pain, the brothers shed tears together. If he was happy, he would laugh. He would laugh at the changes in the world. If he was angry, he would go berserk. He would battle the world and dye the Jianghu red with blood. He would kill until the heavens and earth were turned upside down. He would stir up tsunamis and landslides. Because with you and him by my side, I am fearless. It was as if he had seen the death of his beloved wife. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. His brothers had come to accompany him, grieving together. It was as if he could see his brothers growing old one by his side, closing their eyes one by his side. They went from vigorous and lively to silent, and in the end they turned into a pile of dirt. His heart was torn apart again and again. Faintly, it was as if a few tombs full of green grass had appeared in front of him. The sun was setting in the west, and it was silent between heaven and earth. In front of the tombs, an old man in green stood for a long time, looking sentimental and melancholic. Chu Yang's eyes were moist. At this moment he suddenly felt the same way. The sorrow and melancholy in his heart could not be suppressed. Pa! In the silence, the sound of teardrops falling to the ground could be heard softly. It was so clear and so shocking. Chu Yang suddenly woke up. Only then did he realize that his face was already covered in tears. His tears were dripping to the ground, making soft sounds. He looked across and saw that the old man was still sitting quietly. His eyes were filled with infinite wisdom and depth, looking at him. Chu Yang wanted to speak, but he only felt a lump in his throat. He could not say a single word. He wanted to stop his tears, but no matter what he said, he could not stop them. The sorrow in his heart became more and more intense. For a moment, sorrow came from his heart and could not be cut off. After a long time, Chu Yang finally calmed down a little. He rubbed his eyes embarrassedly. He did not understand why he would cry in such an embarrassing manner here. Ever since Mo Qingwu died in front of him in his previous life, Chu Yang was in extreme pain and cried bitterly. At his last moment, when he thought of Mo Qingwu, other than crying, Chu Yang did not know how many things he had experienced since his rebirth, but he had never cried like this. But at this moment, Chu Yang felt that he was crying like a baby. "You're awake." The old man's voice came. He was clearly in front of him, but his voice seemed to have crossed thousands of mountains and rivers. It came from the clouds and mist. It was so ethereal that it seemed to be full of illusions. "Yes." Chu Yang lowered his head. "I'm a little ashamed. I actually felt the same way just now and cried in embarrassment." "Cried in embarrassment?" The old man smiled. "I used 1,000 years of cultivation to create an illusion of the vicissitudes of life. I condensed 1,000 years into this moment, turned the past into the present, and brought you into my world. I let you see the joys and sorrows of my life, the joys and sorrows of my life, the loneliness and heroism of my life, the love and infatuation of my life." He said slowly, "You're actually crying because you're embarrassed." Chu Yang raised his head in shock and looked at the old man in disbelief. "Elder?" For a moment, it was like an illusion and also real. Could it be that what I saw just now was actually real? Was it actually an illusion created by the ancestor with his all-powerful divine power? So that he could put himself in it? So that the real past could be seen again? The old man nodded gently but clearly confirmed Chu Yang's guess. "You've cried. Do you feel better?" The old man looked at him quietly. Ever since Mo Qingwu's death in his previous life, Chu Yang had always felt suffocated in his chest. He could not vent it out. Even in this life it was still the same. His heart was heavy and there was no way to relieve it. In addition, in this life he had too many secrets that he could not tell others. After suppressing them in his heart for a long time, it became heavier and heavier, but at this moment, after hearing this sentence, he suddenly realized that the heavy and suffocating feeling in his chest had unknowingly dissipated by more than half. Chu Yang could not help but wonder. What was going on? Tears are good things. Crying is even better. The old man looked at him with some affection. "Child, you have too many things on your mind. You've suppressed yourself. This time you've shed tears to your heart's content. You've vented a lot of your pressure." Chu Yang lowered his head and pondered. Could crying reduce the pressure? Why do people cry? It's to relieve their emotions. When you don't cry when you cry, you'll suppress it in your heart. You think that things have passed, but they haven't. The more you accumulate, the stronger the backlash in the end. The old man said, "When I was young, I always thought that men shed tears but not blood. Shedding tears is the behavior of a coward. So, even if you stab yourself with a knife and let the pain replace your tears, you're not willing to let your tears flow and maintain the image of a tough man. Actually, this is the stupidest thing. Because although these will not erupt at the time when you're old, human nature will make you nostalgic. And at that time, as you grow older, you'll become more and more nostalgic. The things that you've been suppressing in your heart will come one after another. It will become the most painful torture for you. In terms of martial arts, it's the demon of the heart. The old man said, and this demon of the heart can't be controlled. So, the cultivation of a martial artist stops here. So, the lifespan of an ordinary person stops here. Chuyang seemed to understand something. He murmured, I see. So, in a person's life he needs to indulge himself. When he's proud he needs to laugh wildly. When he's heartbroken he shouldn't be stingy with his tears. When he should cry he should cry. When he should laugh he should laugh. That's living a truly free and easy life. The old man looked at him with a smile. Chuyang, actually, the image of a so-called tough man that you deliberately maintain is not worth much. It's too worthless. A real tough man is one who swallows rivers and mountains and dominates the world. He's sincere and genuine. That's the tough man of the martial world. Yes. Chuyang was sincerely convinced. He said, I'll remember it. Chuyang pondered. Regarding his past and future, he carefully sorted out the many things that he had done in the past. Now that he thought about it, his pretentiousness back then were really somewhat childish and laughable. It was a common problem of young people. When Chuyang raised his head, his eyes were already clear and bright. The old man smiled with gratification. The old man didn't know that his illusionary past this time, the evolution of the world and his teachings, had changed Chuyang's attitude towards life completely. Chuyang sat where he was respectfully waiting for him to speak. This was the first time that his arrogant heart of 2 lifetimes was so impressed by someone. The old man smiled slightly and said, Chuyang, you may not know my name. My name is Chu Xiaoxing. He laughed. Xiaoxing, a homonym for be careful. My brothers used to joke with me and would always shout to each other, be careful, it's coming. He recalled and laughed. Chuyang laughed too. At this moment he suddenly thought of Gu Duxing. When GMO and Luo Kadi were joking and fighting, they would always tease each other, take care of your little brother, old Gu. And at that time, Gu Duxing would always fly into a rage, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. When I was 20 years old, I left home for the first time and wandered the martial world. It was at that 1,000 acres of tea garden that I saw her. He laughed and his eyes actually seemed to still have the amazement of the past. He said contentedly, that's your great-grandmother. Chuyang smiled knowingly. He could imagine his happiness and contentment at that time. At the same time, he also sensitively noticed that the elder ancestor finally started to talk about his cultivation of the path of emotions after giving him a heads-up, transforming his life and clearing his inner demons. All the mysteries must be in the story that he was telling. So, Chuyang relaxed all his mind and focused all his attention on integrating himself into the story. At this moment, the old man's sharp eyes shot out. Chuyang was startled. He felt that although this gaze was sharp like a sword, it was also full of warm power and a kind of wonderful consciousness, as well as a kind of mysterious attraction. Under the help and attraction of this gaze, Chuyang actually felt that he seemed to have transformed into Chu Xiaoxing and entered that place of time and space 1,000 years ago. But the wonderful thing was that his mind still remained clear, the path of emotions. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.